Chapter 459. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more wonderful content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. After Gu Jiao left the palace, she directly went to Vermilion Bird Avenue. Princess Xinyang's first course of treatment had already ended. The effect was pretty good, so she was about to start the second course. Gu Jiao took out the medicine from the small medicine box and put it in a small porcelain bottle and handed it to Princess Xinyang. Neither of them mentioned the matter of the imperial palace. In fact, even if they didn't mention it, Princess Xinyang had already heard about it. After all, she also had some old people in the palace. When necessary, they would send news to her. For example, last time when the imperial guards captured Long Yi, it was her old subordinates who tipped her off. But at that time, she was drunk. It was Xiao Luleng who entered the palace and calmed Empress Zhao's anger. Needless to say, it was definitely because he confessed his identity to Empress Xiao. More and more people knew his identity. This paper ball couldn't contain the fire anymore. "Princess, what are you thinking about?" Gu Jiao noticed Princess Xinyang's absent-mindedness. "Nothing." Princess Xinyang came back to her senses and looked at the medicine bottles on the table. "Is this all? It seems there's one bottle less than last time." Gu Jiao explained, "Princess's heart disease is getting better. You don't need to take the other medicine." Princess Xinyang nodded. Yujin walked over and took the medicine bottles. Gu Jiao planned to get up and leave. Princess Xinyang hesitated and called out to her, "What happened to his leg?" Gu Jiao looked at her and said, "Princess, do you want to ask how his leg was injured? Or do you want to ask if his leg can be treated effectively?" Princess Xinyang said, "Both." Gu Jiao placed the small basket back on the table. He was injured while trying to save someone. About 2 years ago, he didn't receive proper treatment at first, causing his right foot to be disabled. Every step he took was as painful as a needle piercing his heart. Princess Xinyang's hand tightened. Gu Jiao continued. About a year later, he underwent surgery to correct the injury on his right leg. But because he was lame for too long, his right leg muscles were weak and he still couldn't walk. He used half a year to rehabilitate. The rehabilitation process is very tiring. Princess Xinyang's eyelashes trembled slightly. "Then why isn't it better?" "The wounds on your body have healed." Gu Jiao pointed at her chest. "Even my scalpel can't do anything about it." Lord Ning's demotion had caused a great disturbance in the capital city. Grand Tutor Zhuang intended to manipulate the people's hearts and tried to use public opinion to confuse the truth. However, Empress Xiao was not to be trifled with. "No matter how much money your Grand Tutor Zhuang gave me, I'll give you 3 times that." At least she wasn't as stingy as her brother. The final beneficiary of the matter of manipulating the hearts of the people was the old chancellor. He would write a whitewashing story for whoever he took the money from and sell it to the waiter and storyteller in the tea house. The lines he wrote were logical and meticulous, with profound meanings expressed in simple terms. His choice of words and sentences were appropriate, and he had a strong sense of immersion. He was well received by the tea house staff and storytellers. Empress Xiao successfully defeated Grand Tutor Zhuang with her character of squandering money like water, which was completely different from her brother's, and obtained the old chancellor's ultimate whitewashing set meal. Of course, old chancellor didn't use his real name to get in touch with both parties. The 3 parties used the study room as their contact point. Old chancellor played 2 roles and used the identity of 2 writers to get in touch with both parties. Empress Xiao thought that the writer she found was better, but in fact, it was just that the money was in place. The old chancellor made a small profit. He patted his bulging pouch that was filled with banknotes. He didn't have to worry about Zhuang Jin's robbing his private stash anymore. Then, as soon as he entered the room, he was robbed. The old chancellor. "Oh, my banknotes haven't even warmed up yet." Lord Ning's case caused a great uproar. In comparison, the news that the crown princess suddenly went to the temporary imperial residence to recuperate due to a serious illness seemed to be calmer. In fact, whether it was Lord Ning or Wen Linlang, they didn't have much to do with Bishui Alley. What they cared about most was that child Lulang. Recently, that child seemed to have lost weight again. Auntie Lu came to ask, "Auntie Hua, what's wrong with your Lulang? I saw that he had a lot on his mind several times when I came to visit." Empress Dowager Zhuang sighed. "Alas, he misses his mother." "Ah, he has a mother." Auntie Lu and the neighbors had never seen or heard this family mention it. She thought that Xiao Lulang was a child without a mother. Is his mother pretty? His father was pretty. Auntie Lu thought of Marquis Xianping and thought that he was better looking than Auntie Husan. In fact, no one told her that Marquis Xianping and Xiao Lulang were father and son. However, when they stood together, no one would think that they weren't. Not bad. Empress Dowager Zhuang thought about it and said, "Princess Xinyang inherited the beauty of the late emperor and consort Yu. Even Ning and couldn't compare to her." "Auntie Hua, what do you think of me?" Auntie Lu posed. "I'm not a coward, right?" Empress Dowager Zhuang glanced at her. "You're the first person in the capital who dares to compare beauty with Princess Xinyang." Empress Dowager Zhuang admired her courage and nodded. "Yes, you're not a coward." Auntie Lu straightened her back and snorted. "If his mother doesn't want him, I'll be his mother. If she dares to come, I'll compete with her." As soon as she finished speaking, a carriage stopped in front of her. A woman wearing a green cloak slowly stepped out of the carriage. Auntie Lu usually only looked at men's faces. However, she was shocked by the other person's appearance and bearing. How could someone be so good-looking? If Eugene's appearance stunned Auntie Lu, then when Eugene stood still and helped Princess Xinyang out of the carriage, Auntie Lu was petrified on the spot. The all-powerful Empress Dowager Zhuang was calm. She patted Auntie Lu's arm. "Here, the person you want to compete with is here." Auntie Lu. When Princess Xinyang saw Empress Dowager Zhuang, she was slightly shocked. She wasn't shocked that she was here, but that she was dressed like a common old lady. She even crossed her legs and leisurely ate melon seeds. Even when she saw her, she didn't have the slightest intention of restraining herself. At first glance, she knew she was experienced. Princess Xinyang had never seen this Empress Dowager Zhuang before. She had always believed that people in power had two faces, but it was really surprising that she was so different from what she appeared to be. Princess Xinyang quickly put away her surprise and went forward to bow slightly. In the presence of neighbors, she didn't expose Empress Dowager Zhuang's identity. She opened her mouth. The West Room." Empress Dowager Zhuang ate melon seeds and didn't even raise her eyelids. The West Room was easy to find. Princess Xinyang thanked Empress Dowager Zhuang and stepped into the central room. She turned and went to the West Room. The door to the West Room was ajar. Xiao Lulang was sitting behind the desk, studying the Yin Kingdom's arithmetic book. At first, Gu Jiao thought that the book was about advanced mathematics, but after carefully flipping through it, she realized that it wasn't just advanced mathematics. It covered a wide range of fields. Some of the contents were from the book, while others were like small notes that the book's owner had casually jotted down. Xiao Lulang hadn't been to the Hamlin Academy these days. He had been studying this in the study. He was so engrossed in his study that he didn't even notice that someone had come. Princess Xinyang quietly walked into the room and looked at the furnishings. It was not worth mentioning compared to the Vermilion Bird Avenue and the Princess Mansion, but there was a touch of warmth and bookishness in the clean and simple room. The warmth came from the small, messy boxes on the ground. Little Jing Kong was messing with his things again. He had no place to put his things, so he had to rummage through the boxes and cabinets to find them. However, it was this seemingly out-of-place mess that made this silent and cold room have a trace of a home. Xiao Liulang's desk was now divided into 3 parts. The largest part was occupied by little Jing Kong. As for the other 2 parts, one was Xiao Liulang's private area, and the other was his and little Jing Kong's common area. The little guy had also drawn a line on the desk. Just looking at the line on the desk, Princess Xinyang couldn't help but think of the big one and the little one fighting for territory. Princess Xinyang couldn't hide the bitterness in her heart. The young duke, who could buy all the desks in the world with a lift of his finger, was wrong to share a desk with a little kid in a place like this. However, perhaps because of his cooking experience, she was more receptive than before. Xiao Lulang didn't raise his head until he finished the math problem in his hand. It had been half an hour since Princess Xinyang entered the room. Xiao Lulang looked at Princess Xinyang, who was quietly looking at him from across the desk. A trace of astonishment flashed through his eyes. "Can I say a few words to you?" "I'll leave after that," Princess Xinyang said with a normal expression. Xiao Lulang's eyes flashed slightly. He paused and said, "Okay." Princess Xinyang turned around and closed the door. Then she sat down across from Xiao Lulang. The afternoon sun shone quietly through the window. In the courtyard, the neighbors were gossiping about whose wife was about to give birth and whose cat was missing. It made the west room even quieter. They hadn't sat together like this for 4 years, and both of them were a little uncomfortable. However, this discomfort came from the breakdown of their relationship as mother and son. Neither of them knew what the other was thinking, nor did they know if they should continue to maintain their relationship. Finally, Princess Xinyang spoke first. "Tell me about your experience. Where did you go after leaving the capital?" The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964/_8962/1099-235004. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 460. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Xiao Lulang was silent. It wasn't clear if he didn't want to answer, or if he didn't want to answer. Princess Xinyang said, "Forget it, I'll go first." Xiao Lulang sneered. "What do you want to say? That you don't want to see me, and don't even want me to appear in the capital. So you came here to drive me away? I don't even have the right to stay in the capital anymore, right?" Princess Xinyang's pupils constricted violently. She looked at him in disbelief, but at the same time, it was reasonable. She lowered her eyes, hiding the complex emotions that flashed through them. "I'm not here to drive you away. I just want to talk to you about what happened 4 years ago." Xiao Lulang turned his face away. "I don't want to talk." Princess Xinyang didn't seem to hear his refusal at all. Minding her own business, she said, "Where should I start? Why don't we start with Xiao Su's younger brother?" Xiao Su. This name was like a hammer striking his sealed sea of consciousness. The memories suppressed in the depths of his mind surged forth. Xiao Su's mother was Chen Yun's mother. He only had one younger brother in the world, and that was the real Xiao Lulang. Princess Xinyang said, when Chen Yun's mother passed away, she had her eldest son take his younger brother to the capital to find their father. Unfortunately, the servants of the Marquis Manor refused to let them in. No one believed them, and no one was willing to report for them, until they met the young chancellor from the Imperial College, the young Marquis of Jiaodu, Xiaohong. As she spoke of Xiaohong, her eyes fell unblinkingly on Xiao Liulang's face. Xiao Liulang's thin lips pursed tightly, and his fists clenched slightly. He didn't look at Princess Xinyang's gaze. Princess Xinyang stared at him. Xiaohong has a kind nature. After hearing about Xiao Liulang's past, not only did he not look down on him, he was moved by his miserable experience. Xiao Lulang recalled the first time he had seen Xiao Su and the real Xiao Lulang. That was a face that was somewhat similar to his own. His clothes were tattered, and he was cowering in a corner outside the Marquis's estate. Curious, he walked over and asked, "Who are you?" My name is Xiao Lulang. This is my travel permit. This is..." He took out the token that Marquis Xianping had given to Qin Yun's mother. It was an old-fashioned token that Marquis Xianping had replaced 10 years ago. However, Xiao Heng still recognized that it was the true token of Marquis Xianping's estate. Xiao Heng asked strangely, "How come you have the token of the Marquis of Xianping's estate?" The youth looked at him timidly, so nervous that he stuttered. My mother gave it to me. She told me to take the token and come to the capital to find my father. But they didn't let me and my brother go in." Xiao Heng made a sound of surprise and asked in bewilderment, "He's your brother? You two don't look alike. You look more like me." Ah! The youth was dumbfounded. At that time, Xiao Su had already guessed Xiao Heng's identity. It could be said that he was using him, or that he was sincerely asking for help. In any case, Xiao Su knelt before Xiao Heng and begged him to let his younger brother see his biological father. Xiao Heng agreed. "There's been a few big cases in the capital. My father has been very busy recently. Even I can't see him. However, he'll definitely come back to stay up with me on New Year's Eve. When the time comes, I'll take you to see him." "Right, where are you guys staying?" The two of them stayed in the cheapest bungalow in the capital. Xiao Heng arranged for them to stay in a decent inn. He promised the two that he would send someone to pick up the youth on New Year's Eve. Xiao Heng didn't expect that on New Year's Eve, when he went to the Imperial College, the youth would secretly follow him. "What are you doing here?" Can I come with you? I won't return to the Marquis's estate so soon. I can wait for you." The youth insisted. "All right then." Xiao Heng brought the youth into the Imperial College. "My mother is here." "Then I'll hide." "No need. I'll explain to my mother." "No, your mother definitely won't let me off. Your mother is a princess. If she finds out that I'm Marquis Xianping's illegitimate son, I'll be finished." The youth was so scared that he trembled. Xiao Heng had no choice but to let him hide in the passageway for the time being. "Mother." Xiao Heng happily opened the door for Princess Xinyang. "Are you here to pick me up?" Princess Xinyang had indeed come to pick him up, but not to bring him back to the estate, but to take him to hell together. Princess Xinyang did her best to make her voice sound calm, but her fingers tightly gripping her handkerchief betrayed her emotions. However, Xiao Lulang was sitting across from her, and the desk happened to block her view. She said, "When you woke up, you were lying in the inn with Xiao Su by your side. Xiao Su told you that he was worried about his younger brother, so he secretly followed him. When he discovered that the Imperial College was ablaze, he rushed into the fire to look for his younger brother. In the end, he didn't find his younger brother, but instead found you, who was on the verge of death. He had no choice but to carry you out. Then he told you that he saw a masked man rescue an unconscious woman." Xiao Lulang was slightly startled. How did you know?" Princess Xinyang smiled faintly. "How did I know? How did I know this story? And how did I know about Xiao Su?" As the princess of a country, it wasn't too difficult for me to investigate my son's whereabouts when he was alive. I was the one who found Xiao Su, and I made up the story. Xiao Su had never entered the Imperial College. He was indeed worried about his younger brother, but the Imperial College wasn't a place where he could enter just because he wanted to. It wasn't that Xiao Heng hadn't thought of this, but other than this possibility, he couldn't think of any other possibility. Xiao Lulang looked into Princess Xinyang's eyes without blinking. "So in the end, who was the one who rescued me? Was it Long Yi?" Princess Xinyang subconsciously grasped her left arm. When she carried Xiao Heng out of the fire, a piece of burning beam broke down, almost hitting Xiao Heng's head. She raised her arm to block it, but her entire arm was burned. Even now it was unbearably ugly. This time, Princess Xinyang avoided his gaze. She lowered her eyes and said, "That year, there was something you didn't know. That child was naturally timid, so he didn't have the guts to follow you. Xiao Su was worried that you would deceive them, so he made him follow you closely. The two of them had temporary travel permits in the capital, and New Year's Eve was the deadline. If Marquis Xianping didn't recognize this son of his, they would have been sent out of the capital the next day. Brother Xiao Su's death had nothing to do with you, so don't blame yourself. Xiao Lulang raised his hand and touched his right eye. He said in a daze, "Then my mole," Princess Xinyang said, "I burned it with a flame." "Why?" Xiao Lulang asked. "Because your mother had the exact same mole on her face. I didn't want that group of people to find you. When people grow up, their appearance will change. But this mole is too obvious." Princess Xinyang didn't say these words. She lowered her eyes and spread out the handkerchief in her hand. She said indifferently. In short, Xiao Lulang looked at her with burning eyes. "You still haven't answered me. Who rescued me from the fire? If it wasn't Xiao Su, then who was it? You clearly already know who it was. So why do you have to force me to say it myself?" Xiao Yolang's eyes were slightly red. "When I found out that I was rescued by Xiao Su, I actually let out a sigh of relief. It was Xiao Su who took me away. It wasn't you who didn't want me. Now, you're telling me that everything was your idea. You gave me to Xiao Su. You had him take me away from the capital. You used this method to get rid of me. That was the mother he had relied on for 14 years. Even if she personally sent him to hell, he wouldn't be able to hate her. It was all his sins, and he deserved whatever fate he got. Only he would also feel pain." Xiao Lulang raised his hand and quickly wiped away the tears that were about to fall. He pretended that he had never cried. He laughed at himself and looked out the window. "That's right. I caused your son's death and stole everything that belonged to your son. I was originally his substitute. Later on, you found out that the substitute had become a scourge. It would be strange if you didn't want to get rid of me." He had clearly accepted this fact a long time ago. For 4 years, he had been numbing himself in his mind day and night. But why did his heart still feel like it was being stabbed by a knife? He raised his hand again to wipe away his tears. He stubbornly looked out the window, refusing to let her see his red eyes. How could Princess Xinyang's heart not feel like it was being stabbed by a knife? He wasn't a substitute. He never had been. The first day she held him by her side, she clearly knew that this wasn't the fetus in her womb. But so what? He cried all night and would only calm down in her arms. He didn't drink his wet nurse's milk and forced her, the noble princess of the imperial family, to personally feed him. He was especially clingy, especially troublesome, and especially good at causing trouble for her. But he would also silently accompany her on the countless days when she was disheartened. As long as she turned her head, she would always be able to see that little face full of stars. The little guy clasped his hands behind his back. Like a little adult, he tilted his head and raised his eyebrows with a pleased expression. "I'm here. No matter when Mother turns her head, Aheng is always here." It wasn't that she didn't try to treat him as her dead son, but the little guy seemed to have his own unique abilities. His entire body was filled with his unique aura. He glowed like a little sun that was slowly rising. He was her Aheng. He would not replace anyone and could not be replaced by anyone. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_89642_829923313. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 461. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. Inside the house, the mother and son were grieving like a river. Outside the house, however, they were eavesdropping on the corner of the house. one head on top of another. They leaned against the crack of the door, wishing they could gouge out their ears and eyeballs and send them in. Little Jing Kong was the smallest, so he was at the bottom. Above them were Gu Xiaoshun and Gu Yan, and above them was Great Aunt. Grand Aunt was not as tall as the two of them, but her aura was stronger, so the two of them could only obediently lower their bodies. Yao Shi also came to join in the fun. Yu Jin's purpose of guarding the door was to prevent anyone from eavesdropping. But the old and the young could not use force or soft methods. They would never admit that it was because the Empress Dowager was here. In the end, Eugene gave up resisting. If you want to listen, let's listen together. He walked over, and seeing a group of people had stuck their head to the crack of the door, he remained silent for 2 seconds, then also stuck his head to the crack of the door. Thus, he stuck himself higher up. Everyone raised their heads in unison. You're blocking the light. Except for little Jing Kong, who lacked social experience. Even though he could understand every word, he couldn't understand the meaning of the sentence. The rest of the people had roughly understood the relationship between the mother and son, as well as the ins and outs of what had happened that year. Little Jing Kong, bad brother-in-law, is indeed hung. He still refused to admit it. Well, that was the only message he understood. Gu Yan, so my brother-in-law, is the young chancellor, the young Marquis of Zhaodu. Gu Xiaoshun, I told you to be careful of candles when the weather is dry. The fireproof measures for the imperial colleges wood are not good enough. Yao Shi, my son-in-law is too pitiful. What sort of sin did he commit? Later, she would ask Nanny Fong to stew a pot of pig's heart soup. Yujin, Princess and Little Duke have actually endured so much. Empress Dowager Zhuang couldn't listen anymore. The two of them were talking in the room, but they didn't get to the main point. They were so shy that she was anxious. It was a misunderstanding that could have been resolved with one sentence. But he just didn't say it. He just wouldn't say it. To hell with not saying anything. If the two of you don't want to talk, then I will. Empress Dowager Zhuang gave everyone a look. Russian? Everyone nodded in unison. Charge. They had to charge. Empress Dowager Zhuang was shocked and pushed open the door. She had intended to lead her army of Jadewater Alley to charge in, but in the end, she turned around. Where is he? Everyone, including the pot-bellied Yao Shi, immediately moved to the side of the door and leaned against the wall. Empress Dowager Zhuang, who took the lead, finally shouldered everything by herself. The huge movement made the atmosphere in the room stagnate. Princess Xinyang and Xiao Lulang changed their auras. The mother and son were in sync. Their brows relaxed, their shoulders relaxed, their backs straightened, and their eyes were calm and cold. It was as if nothing had happened. The two of them were just talking about the weather today. Empress Dowager Zhuang. If it wasn't for those two eyes that were swollen like walnuts, I would really believe it. Forget it. She was already here. She was the Empress Dowager of a country. She could handle all the civil and military officials. So how could she not be able to handle two people who did not mean what they said? Xiao Lulang moved a chair for Empress Dowager Zhuang. Empress Dowager Zhuang sat down and looked at Princess Xinyang on her right. You. Yes, it's you. 4 years ago, was it you who saved him from the fire? When she said he, she glanced at Xiao Lulang. Without waiting for Princess Xinyang to speak, Empress Dowager Zhuang said, you better think carefully before you answer. I am not asking you as Liu Long's grandaunt, but as the Empress Dowager of a country. I am the Empress Dowager with real power. You better not deceive me. Otherwise, it will be the same as deceiving the emperor. With real power, she was just that arrogant. After Xiao Lulang heard his grandaunt's words, he turned into a primary school chicken waiting for the teacher to announce the exam results. He was both expectant and nervous. Princess Xinyang was a person who would suffer for her pride. In this aspect, Xiao Lulang was very similar to her. She was originally only one step away from stepping down. Now that Empress Dowager Zhuang had given her a step, she naturally would not kick it away. But she still had to pretend. It was not that she wanted to say it. It was the Empress Dowager who forced her to say it. Princess Xinyang whispered, "Yes." Xiao Liulang's eyes moved slightly. Empress Dowager Zhuang asked, "Do you have evidence?" Princess Xinyang really did not intend to say it, but her body language had already betrayed her. Empress Dowager Zhuang saw her subconsciously touch her left arm. Although it was just a symbolic movement, it was enough for the discerning Empress Dowager Zhuang to see through everything. Empress Dowager Zhuang pulled up her sleeve and saw that her left arm was covered with hideous and ugly scars that extended to her shoulder. Princess Xinyang did not expect Empress Dowager Zhuang to be so sharp that she immediately exposed her wound to Xiao Lulang. Empress Dowager Zhuang was also surprised. She knew that Xinyang must have been injured, but she did not expect it to be so serious. If she had known, she would not have shown it to Lulang. No mother in the world would want her child to see such a painful side of her. Then how did she escape the fire with Lulang on her back? The 14-year-old Xiaoheng was about the same height as Gu Yan. With Princess Xinyang's slender body, it was actually very difficult to carry him. At that time, the fire in the room had almost been put out by her. However, when the beam fell, she raised her hand to block it and tripped. Coincidentally, she fell into the almost extinguished fire. Just like that, the sleeve on her left arm caught fire. From their conversation just now, Empress Dowager Zhuang and Xiao Lulang could not tell how many people had set the fire. Empress Dowager Zhuang thought it was only Prince Ning. Xiao Lulang thought it was only Princess Xinyang. The fire that had truly killed Xiao Su's younger brother was actually the third big fire. It really burned the Minghui Hall of the Imperial College beyond recognition. In the 3 years that the Imperial College had been closed, almost half of the time had been spent repairing it. The intentions of the arsonists were too obvious. They wanted Xiao Heng's life, the kind that couldn't be more dead. Princess Xinyang had once suspected that the arsonists wanted to take revenge on her or Marquis Xianping. However, the more she investigated, the more she felt that something was wrong. The people they had offended were either in Zhao country or Qin country. There was no power in either country that she could not find at all. There was only one possibility. The arsonists were very likely from one of Shangzhou country. The two of them had no dealings with people from Shangzhou. Naturally, they could not be considered enemies. Thus, the arsonists might really have come for Xiaoheng. Xiaoheng had also never offended people from Shangzhou. The only connection he had with Shangzhou was that his mother was a female slave from Yan country. Could this matter have something to do with her? Was she really a female slave? Princess Xinyang thought of the past from her scar and was momentarily distracted. She did not notice that Xiao Lulang was kneeling on one knee in front of her. Once again, he lifted her sleeve and looked at the wound that snaked up her jade-like arm. "Go back and have Jiao Jiao think of a way." Empress Dowager Zhuang patted Xiao Liulang's shoulder. Xiao Lulang lowered his eyes and quietly put down the hand that was lifting her sleeve. A hot teardrop fell on the back of her hand. It was so hot that her heart trembled. She came back to her senses and realized that her wound had been seen by Xiao Lulang again. Xiao Liulang's eyes were filled with indescribable sadness. He had been like this since he was a child. As long as she was slightly injured, he would feel so distressed that he would cry. She was clearly fine, but he cried like a little rain fairy. Princess Xinyang unconsciously said, "It doesn't hurt anymore. Mother is fine." Once the word mother came out of her mouth, the two of them stiffened. Empress Dowager Zhuang, "I suddenly feel that Aijia is a bit redundant here." Empress Dowager Zhuang silently stood up and left. Before she left, she did not forget to take the candied fruit from the table. As expected at this special moment, no one noticed that she had taken the candied fruit. However, just as she reached the door, she bumped into Gu Jiao, who had just returned from the medical center. Empress Dowager Zhuang, who had been robbed of her candied fruit. The heavens were good at reincarnation. Who would the heavens spare? In fact, once the window paper was pierced, there was no need to hide it anymore. Princess Xinyang choked with sobs and smiled. As if she had recalled something, she said, "Xiao Yi." "What?" Xiao Lulang was confused. He did not understand why the topic had suddenly changed. Also, what was Xiao Yi? Was there a Xiao Yi? Fragrant and reliant. Princess Xinyang said with a smile. Her eyes were filled with tears, but she still had a smile on her lips. When I was pregnant, I thought of a name for the child. If it's a girl, she will be called Xiao Yi. Xiao Lulang muttered, subdued and invisible, fragrant and reliant. That's right. Princess Xinyang faintly smiled. If it's a son, then he will be called Xiao Hong? Wasn't this nonsense? Wasn't he called Xiao Hong? She had already prepared a name, so why bother asking? Xiao Liulang's eyes dimmed. No. Princess Xinyang shook her head with a smile. If it's a son, then I plan to call him Xiao Qing. Xiao Lulang asked, Sheng's Wu Jiang, is it the Qing from Qing's legend movement? Princess Xinyang smiled. Now that you mention it, this name is not so ordinary. Xiao Lulang did not understand the meaning of Princess Xinyang's words. Could it be that she had planned to give her son an ordinary name from the beginning? Princess Xinyang continued, my longevity lock was set, and then he was gone. This was the first time in 18 years that Princess Xinyang had spoken so frankly about her son's death. She didn't know why, but she suddenly felt relieved. After speaking, she realized that it was not as painful as she had imagined. Princess Xinyang wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and raised her hand to caress his cheek. Looking at his red eyes, she choked with sobs and solemnly said, Xiao Hong is Xiao Hong. Xiao Qing is Xiao Qing. I have never mixed you up. You did not steal his life. Xiao Heng's life is your own life. I know very well that you are Xiao Hong. I have always known. And I have always loved him deeply. Xiao Liulang's heart was filled with sour and bitter emotions. He nervously clenched his hand. His eyes were red and the light in his eyes flickered. His throat swelled painfully as he said, I am Xiao Hong. Princess Xinyang held his cheeks with both hands and smiled tearfully. Yes, you are Xiao Hong. You are my child. He had finally found the name he had lost. He was Xiao Hong. He was his mother's child. Digression. Oh, are there any more monthly tickets? The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/8964/2_89964286/1099198887. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 462. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that can't be found online are all available here. In the Eastern Room, under Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshuan's eloquent explanations and gestures, Gu Yan was mainly responsible for the explanation, while Gu Xiaoshan was mainly responsible for the gestures. Gu Jiao finally understood the ins and outs of the incident. Gu Jiao knew a bit about Xiao Liulang's background, but from the conversation between the mother and son, Xiao Liulang's background and the fire from 4 years ago had other secrets. Gu Jiao felt that the person who set the fire shouldn't be Prince Ning, at least not when Xiao Hong was burned to death. Both Princess Xinyang and Prince Ning should have had the idea of setting the fire, but neither of them succeeded. The former was soft-hearted and stopped at the last moment, while the latter was probably nipped in the bud by Princess Xinyang before it could happen. Then who could it be? Why would they do this? Xiao Hong was only a youth who stood aloof from worldly affairs. If one had to point out who he was an eyesore, it could be those who were jealous of his talent or the Zhuang family. However, with Marquis Xianping and Princess Xinyang's strength, there shouldn't be anyone who had the guts or ability to harm their son. especially since the Imperial College was originally the old Chancellor and Xiao Heng's territory. Otherwise, how could Prince Ning's arson be discovered by Princess Xinyang in time? Concubine Jing had once poisoned Xiao Heng, but that was because the Imperial Palace was her territory. Furthermore, Princess Xinyang and Marquis Xianping had protected Xiao Heng very well after that, so ordinary enemies had no way to harm him. Thus, that fire wasn't set by an ordinary enemy. As for whether it was revenge against Marquis Xianping or Princess Xinyang, Gu Jiao felt that it was neither. Judging from Princess Xinyang's behavior in sending Xiao Heng away, the other party might have been targeting Xiao Heng himself. That person or power seriously threatened Xiao Heng's safety. For the sake of Xiao Heng's survival, Princess Xinyang had no choice but to do this. And judging from how Marquis Xianping had repeatedly probed Xiao Lulang, Princess Xinyang had even kept him in the dark. Although there was not much trust between husband and wife, Xiao Heng was his own son. His feelings for Xiao Heng were genuine. There could only be one explanation for Princess Xinyang's actions. It was a power that even Marquis Xuanping's household would find difficult to deal with. Could it be the power of the upper nation? The world was divided into 6. The state of Yan, the state of Jin, and the state of Liang were the upper states, while the state of Zhao, the state of Zhao, and the state of Chun were the lower states. There was also the Turkic state that was not recognized by the 6 states. The furthest place Gu Jiao had been to since she came here was the capital. She knew very little about the other countries, so she couldn't guess which country was more likely to be the culprit. But Xiao Lulang had said that his birth mother was a female slave from the state of Yan. There was no keepsake, no words. Xiao Liulang's birth mother didn't leave behind anything that could trace his identity. That night, Princess Xinyang stayed for dinner. Actually, I also know how to cook. I had nothing to do these past few years in Fengdu, so I learned a few of my specialty dishes from the chef in the residence. She was a vegetarian, so all she learned were vegetarian dishes. She wanted to show off her skills to her son, so she made a cold dish of 3 shredded shreds, steamed glutinous rice with red dates, and stir-fried wild mushrooms. Compared to Xiao Liulang's dishes, they were much better. The color were attractive, and the smell was also very appetizing. Everyone couldn't wait to taste them. Then, everyone felt a tremor from their souls. Oh my God! This was too disgusting. They finally knew where Xiao Liulang's dark cooking master came from. Little Jing Kong and Long Yi were so disgusted by the disgusting taste that they rolled their eyes and stuck out their tongues. It was worth mentioning that Gu Jiao gave Long Yi a new mask that covered the upper half of his face, leaving his mouth and chin exposed. He could eat anytime and anywhere. Yujin also showed off her skills in cooking. Fortunately, she didn't add water to her cooking. The fear of being dominated by Princess Xinyang's cooking finally disappeared little by little with her delicious food. After dinner, the old chancellor called Xiao Lulang. Now he should call him Xiao Heng, to the next room. He came back late, so he didn't know how the mother and son had inexplicably recognized each other. Princess Xinyang was led by little Jing Kong to visit his small vegetable garden, as well as his little eagle and 7 chicks. This is little 5, this is little 6, this is little Chi, and this is little 9. After little Jing Kong finished introducing them one by one, little 8 walked over valiantly and said, "This is Big Brother Yan's little 8. Then, he bent down and tied a bright red flower on little 8's head. Princess Xinyang thought of the peacock feather on Gu Jiao's mask, and her eyelids jumped again. What kind of beauty did this pair of siblings have? Princess, this is for you. Little Jing Kong suddenly took out a flower and handed it to Princess Xinyang in a very gentlemanly manner. Only such a beautiful flower is worthy of such a beautiful you. This little bean's mouth was really smeared with honey. But why did this flower look a little familiar? Did Long Yi go to her flower room again? He picked Princess Xinyang's flower and gave it to her. No one else could do this. After that, little Jing Kong invited Princess Xinyang to his west room and showed her his homework. Other than the handwriting being not neat enough, she couldn't find a single mistake. The reason why his handwriting was not neat enough was that he was still too young, so his wrist and hand strength were not enough. In addition, Gu Jiao didn't let him write too many words, for fear that it would affect his growth. He was really a very smart child. Xiao Heng came over from the next room and saw little Jing Kong showing off in front of Princess Xinyang. He was only like this to people he liked. He was very cold to people he didn't like. For example, he never ignored Gu Jinyu when she came over. Of course, little Jing Kong was showing off while discrediting bad brother-in-law. Hearing this, Princess Xinyang couldn't help but laugh. Little Jing Kong said helplessly, "It's true, Princess. You might not believe it, but bad brother-in-law is already 18 years old, and he still wet the bed. After he finished, he blamed it on me. Why are the adults nowadays so insensible?" Princess Xinyang laughed until tears came out. On the other hand, Xiao Heng's handsome face darkened. "Little monk, you feel uncomfortable all over if it's not dark. Have you finished practicing the calligraphy of the Qin Kingdom? Have you memorized the ancient poems of the Liang Kingdom? Have you read the 3-character classic of the Yan Kingdom?" Little Jing Kong snorted and pouted. "Jiao Jiao said that I can do it tomorrow." Xiao Heng raised his eyebrows. "Oh, then did you tell Jiao Jiao what homework you have tomorrow?" Little Jing Kong was especially careful to hide tomorrow's tutoring task so that he could have some free time today. The little guy blinked guiltily. In the end, the fear of being found out by Jiao Jiao and being disappointed in him took over. He unwillingly jumped down from the chair, tiptoed to pick up the book on the table, and went over to his granduncle's side to do his homework. Princess Xinyang still had a smile on her face. She hadn't smiled like this in a long time. The little guy reminded her of Aheng when she was young. "Jing Kong is the same as when you were young," she said with a smile. Xiao Heng snorted. "I'm not as arrogant as him." Princess Xinyang said, "Oh, then who was it that ran to the throne room to show off after memorizing poem?" Xiao Heng's expression suddenly froze. A shameful memory burst forth from the abyss of his consciousness. An adorable little ball chirped as he followed behind the emperor, using both his hands and feet to climb up step by step. He was panting as he climbed, and the hat on his head was crooked. He stood up and clumsily adjusted his hat. Looking at the numerous civil and military officials, he said in a childish voice, I need to memorize a poem. Today, I'm memorizing." That wasn't him. He didn't admit it. He didn't remember. He didn't. Princess Xinyang stayed until late at night before leaving. Xiao Heng sent her to the door. She had already said what she needed to say. Xiao Heng had already guessed what she shouldn't say, but she was still a little worried. Before getting into the carriage, she looked deeply at Xiao Heng and said, "Right now I understand." Xiao Heng nodded knowingly. "Don't worry about the future. I'll take care of it." He still couldn't reveal his identity to the public, but one day he would openly appear in front of everyone as Xiao Heng. He would catch the person behind the scenes who poisoned and set him on fire. No matter if it was a person or a power, no matter what hardships he had to pay, he would not shrink back or escape. If it was a mountain, he would chisel that mountain. If it was a river, he would fill that river. Although a mayfly was small, it could shake a tree. Princess Xinyang looked at the unswerving determination in Xiao Heng's eyes and finally confirmed that he had grown up. In these 4 years, she had worried about his situation countless times and regretted her original decision countless times. Especially when she learned that Xiao Heng had unexpectedly contracted leprosy not long after leaving the capital, and that Xiao Heng had taken care of him for 2 years. Her heart had almost stopped beating. But when it came to this moment, she realized that every step was worth it. All of the pain he had experienced would become an indestructible armor on his body. "Aheng, mother is proud of you." After Princess Xinyang's carriage left, Xiao Lulang returned to the courtyard. He closed the door and bolted it. Turning his head, he saw a person sitting on the swing. The crescent moon was like a hook. The moonlight fell on her shoulders, and her water-like skirt gently swayed in the night wind. Xiao Heng looked at her small back and walked over. It was now late at night, and everyone was asleep. The night seemed especially peaceful. He also softened his voice. "Still not sleeping?" Gu Jiao grabbed the rope of the swing with both hands and tilted her head to look at him. Her eyes sparkled as if they had gathered the stars of the Milky Way. "Are you happy?" Xiao Hong froze for a moment, then quickly reacted. She was talking about him reuniting with Princess Xinyang. He grunted, "I'm happy." Gu Jiao let go of her left hand and moved to the right to make some space for him. This swing was made for little Jing Kong. He had asked for it to be a little bigger, but he was small, so it was only a little bigger than a single-seater swing. Xiao Hong sat down next to her. The two's bodies had no choice but to stick close to each other. In the cool night wind, there was a special kind of warmth. "Thank you," he said. Gu Jiao looked at him in confusion. "Thank you for pulling me out of the mire. Thank you for pushing me to the capital. Thank you for forcing me to face the past that I did not dare face. In the end, I found the truth." He was too embarrassed to say these words. He looked at her gently and changed the topic. "You also seem very happy." Gu Jiao shook her small head. "If you're happy, then I'm happy." The softness in Xiao Heng's heart was touched. He raised his hand and gently patted the top of her head. She seemed to like being patted on the head, so she rubbed her head against his palm. Her hair exuded a faint fragrance of flowers and honey locust. Every strand of her hair exuded a silent invitation, as if to say that he could touch her hair as he wished after washing it. Xiao Hong couldn't hold it in and let out a low laugh. Gu Jiao looked at his smile and was suddenly dazed. He did not smile often, but every time he smiled, it could make people's hearts stop beating. Gu Jiao stared at him blankly. Suddenly, a perverted idea flashed through her mind. She wanted to hide him and put him in her cage, where no one could find him. She was good and bad. "Jiao Jiao." His voice interrupted her thoughts. Gu Jiao blinked. Xiao Hong turned sideways and stared at her. "Is it hard to be with me?" Gu Jiao shook her head. "It's not hard." Xiao Hong said again, "But maybe it will be hard in the future." Gu Jiao said seriously, "I'm not afraid of hard work." Xiao Heng's eyes flashed with a trace of emotion. He gently tucked her hair that had been messed up by the wind behind her ear. Gu Jiao looked down and twiddled her fingers. "Then, do you want to kiss me?" Xiao Hong was stunned. His hand that was tucking her hair stopped in midair. "No," he said solemnly. "Oh." Gu Jiao's little face collapsed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Xiao Hong almost laughed out loud. He held back the mischievous smile in his eyes and slowly raised his hand to support her white neck. His broad palm held the back of her head and said in a hoarse voice, "Jiao Jiao, close your eyes." Gu Jiao obediently closed her eyes. He gently held her head and lowered his head to kiss her soft lips. Unlike in the past, he wanted more this time. "Jiao Jiao," he said against her lips. The scorching hot breath made Gu Jiao's cheeks heat up. Her little face turned as red as a cooked shrimp. "You're so good." He leaned against her forehead and whispered in a gentle voice, "I also think I'm so good." Xiao Hong couldn't help laughing. His laughter was pleasant and magnetic, as his shoulders gently trembled. He tightly pulled her slender waist into his embrace and kissed her again. It was a lingering kiss that filled the air with a trace of sweetness. Xiao Jiao on the roof shyly covered his head with his wings. At dawn, Xiao Hong got up as usual. He first went to the table and poured himself a cup of tea. Then he opened the wardrobe and took out his official robes. Since he had already appeared in the palace, there was no need for him to go missing. He was going to be on duty at Hanlin Academy. As he tidied up his official robes, he vaguely felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't tell what it was. He went to the backyard to wash up. Was drying the quilt. When she saw him, she greeted him, "Good morning, young master." "Morning." Xiao Hong nodded and walked past her. Continued to dry the quilt, but suddenly, she turned her head to look at Xiao Hong. Son-in-law. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. https://www.zhhbqg com/89642_896422826/109895706. HTML Genius. Memorize the website address in a second. www.zhhbqg.com Biku Go mobile version website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 463. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. After hearing Yu-Ya-Er's words, Xiaoheng lowered his head to look at his legs. He finally understood where the strange feeling came from when he was changing his clothes. He didn't use a cane, nor did he limp. He walked out like a normal person. Son-in-law, your legs are healed. Your legs are healed. Yu-Ya-Er was so excited that she repeated it twice in a row. If it weren't for the fact that the others were still asleep, she would have repeated it 3 or 4 times. Coincidentally, Gu Jiao also woke up at this time. She came out of the east room. Xiaoheng immediately gestured for Yu-Ya-Er to keep quiet. Yu-Ya-Er was stunned. Xiaoheng signaled her to keep it a secret with his eyes. Yu-Ya-Er finally understood. Her eyes flashed and she nodded. Gu Jiao walked towards the two of them. Yu-Ya-Er continued to dry the quilt. In fact, she should have greeted Gu Jiao. Yu-Ya-Er was a polite servant girl, but she was too guilty to help the young master do bad things. She didn't dare to look at her young miss at all. Fortunately, Gu Jiao didn't care about trifles and didn't notice Yu-Ya-Er's strange behavior. On the other hand, she hadn't seen her husband wear an official's robe for many days. At first glance, she saw him wearing it. Gu Jiao drooled on the spot for a few seconds at the sight of his handsome face in the morning. Xiaoheng acted as if he didn't notice and greeted her. "Good morning." "And good morning," Gu Jiao replied blankly. Xiaoheng suppressed the corners of his lips that were about to curl up. He limped to the side of the well and began to draw water. Gu Jiao wouldn't let him do heavy work. Gu Jiao took a few steps forward and wanted to take the wooden bucket from his hand. "Let me." Xiaoheng raised his hand slightly. This action caused her to miss the wooden handle of the bucket and grab his hand instead. Xiaoheng cleared his throat, glanced at Yu-Ya-Er behind him, and said seriously, "It's early in the morning, be careful." Gu Jiao. After breakfast, little Jing Kong and his son-in-law went to the Imperial College, while Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshun went to the Qinghe Academy. Everyone in the family already knew Xiaoheng's identity, but they also knew that his affairs were very complicated, so they didn't want to publicize it. Therefore, they still called him Xiao Lulang. "I'm going to the Hamlin Academy." Xiaoheng walked over with his cane and said to Gu Jiao, who was packing up a small medicine box and preparing to go to the clinic. Thinking of something, Gu Jiao said to him, "By the way, how's your hand? Does it still hurt? Can you write now?" The stitches had been removed long ago, and he had been doing rehabilitation for the past few days. He used his left hand to hold a spoon when eating. "It doesn't seem to be very good." Xiaoheng stretched out his right hand and said without changing his expression, "I don't have much strength." "Is that so? Let me take a look." Gu Jiao put down the small medicine box. Xiaoheng limped in front of her and stretched out his right hand. His hand was white and clean, and his fingers were long and slender with distinct joints. Even his fingernails were glossy. Gu Jiao couldn't help but sigh again. In her previous life, this pair of hands was either a surgeon's or a pianist's. She began to examine his wound. There was a faint layer of scar ointment on the wound. Compared to before, the scar had faded a little, but it was still very eye-catching on this perfect hand. Gu Jiao pressed the wound and asked, "Does it hurt?" Xiaoheng was slightly stunned. Then he seemed to react quickly and said, "It hurts, but it's not very obvious." Gu Jiao asked, "Does it hurt even if you don't touch it, or does it only hurt when you touch it?" Xiaoheng said, "It only hurts when you touch it." Gu Jiao paused, then put her hand in his palm and said, "Hold it for a while." Xiaoheng held her hand. Her hand was so small that he could wrap it all in his large palm. Because of practicing martial arts and working hard, there was a faint layer of calluses on her palm and between her thumb and index finger. It was not as soft as Princess Xinyang's hand. He heard that the hands of those noble ladies were so soft, but he didn't like those soft hands. Is that all you can do? Gu Jiao frowned. Is my hand the same as my legs? Do I need to? He sighed and stopped talking. I'll test it again. Gu Jiao found a brush and handed it to him. Then she spread out a piece of paper on the table and said, "Write a word." Xiao Hong held the brush and wrote the word Jiao without much hesitation. That was a word too horrible to look at. It was worse than Gu Jiao's. Gu Jiao was stunned. That's it. He looked a little disappointed and said, "It doesn't seem to be too effective." Gu Jiao frowned and said, "Then you need to strengthen the rehabilitation and add a hand massage." Xiao Hong looked at her deeply and said, "Okay." Gu Jiao said, "I'll take you to Hanlin Academy and give you a massage on the way." Xiao Hong slightly raised the corner of his mouth and said, "Okay." Lu Quan came back after taking the old chancellor and little Jing Kong. Seeing that the two were still there, he said to Xiao Hong, "You haven't gone to Hanlin Academy yet. Come on up. Don't walk there today, or you'll be late." In the past, Xiao Lulang usually walked to Hanlin Academy for rehabilitation. Gu Jiao had the same idea. The two got on the carriage, and Gu Jiao sat next to Xiao Hong. She took his hand and carefully put it on her lap. After autumn, Yao Shi asked everyone in the family to add more clothes, but the soft touch on Gu Jiao's leg clearly showed that she was secretly wearing less underwear. Xiao Hong couldn't help but feel a little restless. Gu Jiao didn't know that this seemingly simple and abstinent young man's mind had already wandered. She massaged very seriously and asked, "Is this heavy?" "I don't feel anything," Xiao Hong said. "Then how about this?" Gu Jiao slightly increased her strength. Ugh! He furrowed his brows and let out a low cry of pain. Gu Jiao hurriedly reduced her strength and asked, "Then how about this?" It took a quarter of an hour just to find the right amount of strength. There was still a quarter of an hour before they reached Hanlin Academy. Gu Jiao stepped up her massage. She looked very serious. Xiao Hong calmly looked at her. The strength in her palm was actually too light for him. Every stroke was like a goose feather, scratching at his heart. Hiss! He suddenly took a deep breath. Gu Jiao looked at him strangely and asked, "What's wrong? Did I press harder again?" Xiao Hong slowly exhaled and said, "No, you didn't. You continue." After a while, he suddenly said out of nowhere, "Eat more." Gu Jiao didn't understand. Why did she have to eat more? Could it be that she had lost weight recently? Digression. Fill in the blanks. Beauty Xiao. Eat more. Quickly ______, 2 words. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964/2_896/1098943744. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 464. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that you can't find online are all available here. Xiao Hong went to the Hanlin Academy. Ning Ziyuan was already waiting for him in his office. Seeing him come over, Ning Ziyuan stood up and rushed to him. He grabbed his arms and looked him up and down. "Are you okay? I heard that you were taken away by an assassin. What kind of evil person is this?" The emperor was going to announce that Ning Ziyuan had taken away Xiao Lulang, but he was stopped by Empress Xiao and Princess Xinyang. Although Princess Xinyang didn't tell Empress Xiao the truth about Xiao Heng, Empress Xiao understood that once the news of Ning Ziyuan's assassination of Xiao Lulang was leaked, Xiao Heng's identity could no longer be hidden. After all, no matter how one looked at it, Ning Ziyuan had no reason to kill Xiao Lulang unless Xiao Liulang's identity was hidden. Xiao Heng said, "I'm fine. It was done by a sect in Jianghu. They wanted to extort some money from me, but they've already been dealt with." The Dual Blades sect wasn't innocent. They had been wiped out by the Imperial Guards long ago. "Are you really okay?" Ning Ziyuan looked at him suspiciously. "I heard that your hand was also injured. Let me see." The two old men looked at him, and to be honest, they were a bit. Ning Ziyuan insisted. Xiao Heng reluctantly reached out his hand. His injuries were mainly on the back of his hand and wrist. The palm of his hand had already healed, and no traces could be seen. Ning Ziyuan looked at the crisscrossing scars on his white hand and couldn't help but shake his head. "What a pity. Can you still write?" "Yes," Xiao Heng said. Hearing this, Ning Ziyuan was finally relieved. "Alas, I was really scared to death when you were taken away. At that time, I was wondering if you were an eyesore, because you advanced too quickly. I even suspected Zhuang Yuheng. However, I met him several times, and he didn't seem to have a guilty conscience, so I dismissed my suspicions. Does that Jianghu sect have any brains? How much money can a poor country boy have? Ah, did her sister-in-law strike it rich? I heard that the business of the Magical Hand Hall has been very good recently. You guys should pay attention to it. If you have too much money, it's hard to avoid attracting people's attention. It's best if you hire a few servants who know martial arts." "Okay," Xiao Heng answered. The two of them sat on opposite sides of the desk. Ning Ziyuan thought of something and suddenly smiled, saying, "But this time, you brat can be considered a blessing in disguise. You don't have to take the exam at the end of the month." Wang Xiuzhua flunked the exam this time and was severely reprimanded by Master Han. He was almost demoted to editor. "What about you?" Xiao Heng asked. Ning Ziyuan said proudly, "As for me, I'm just ordinary. I'm only third. First place is Zhuang Yuheng." The new Hanlin officials weren't the only ones taking the test. The old Hanlin officials were also taking part in the test, with the exception of Lord Han and the attendant. They were the examiners and examiners. It was not surprising that Ning Ziyuan and Zhuang Yuheng were among the top. They had just passed the fall and spring quarter examinations, so their exam skills were still in peak condition. The Hanlin officials, who ranked behind them, were not necessarily less talented than them. They were just not as good at the exam as they were. But it's a pity. Ning Ziyuan suddenly frowned. "What's wrong?" Xiao Heng asked. Ning Ziyuan said, "Didn't Attendant Yang leave? His official position is empty. It said that someone will be promoted. Right now, Zhuang Yuheng is very popular." Zhuang Yuheng was the grandson of Grand Tutor Zhuang. He was the new second place on the imperial exam and had taken first place in the exam. Other than his lack of experience, which was his only shortcoming, he was almost flawless. He had even taken the crown prince's place as a hostage in the Chun kingdom. He was a meritorious official of the Zhao kingdom. In the afternoon, the Hanlin Academy really did announce the good news that someone had been promoted to attendant. However, it was not Zhuang Yuheng. It was Xiao Lulang. "You're really something." Ning Ziyuan patted Xiao Heng's shoulder excitedly. Xiao Heng did not understand how the position of attendant had fallen into his lap. Although he did intend to fight for it after he was injured, he pretended to disappear for half a month. After that, he rested at home for 10 days. He even missed an exam. At the time, he guessed that the position of attendant would not be his. "Lulang, congratulations," Ning Ziyuan said sincerely. Xiao Heng said to him, "Congratulations to you too." Ning Ziyuan had also been promoted. He had been promoted from a 6th-rank attendant to a 6th-rank attendant. Coincidentally, he had taken over Xiao Liulang's position. Ning Ziyuan cleared his throat. Ahem, I'll take over your official position. As for your room, I won't kindly accept it. He was so close to the latrine. If the weather got hot, he would suffocate. It was better for him to stay in his own room. Xiao Hung moved to the attendant's room. Attendant Yang had stayed here before. However, he had not stayed for long and had left in a hurry. Therefore, he had packed everything that needed to be packed away. It was a clean and empty room. After becoming an attendant, in addition to the changes in the room, his salary had also increased from 5 taels to 8 taels. This was his official salary. In addition, he would be given 10 horses of clothing and 10 stones of millet every year. In addition, he would be given an ice tribute in the summer and a charcoal tribute in the winter. He could ask for things or exchange them for money. Hanlin Academy was generally a government office with little money. It was not as profitable as the 6 ministries. However, after gaining experience in Hanlin Academy, people would look up to him wherever he went. The ministers in the cabinet were all from Hanlin Academy. Grand Secretary Yuan, Grand Tutor Zhuang, and even the old Chancellor Zhuang Xinji and Headmaster Li were all from Hanlin Academy. Among them, Grand Secretary Yuan had been an attendant all the way to a 5th-rank Hanlin Academy scholar. Later, because he was involved in an incident, he was demoted to a barren land. 5 years later, he returned to the capital and entered the cabinet as a 7th-rank attendant. He then became the first Grand Secretary of Zhao country. The others all chose other offices after leaving Hanlin Academy. Ning Ziyuan came over to help him move things. Outside the door, a few Hanlin officials walked by. Their conversation could be heard. Did you hear? Royal Prince and is going to be transferred to the cabinet? Who did you hear that from? He heard the conversation between Lord Han and Royal Prince, and you even eavesdropped on Lord Han. No, I was just passing by. I heard it by accident. Lord Han said that if you go to the cabinet, you should not delay your studies. The foundation of ruling a country is in these books. That was definitely not the original words. However, everyone saw that he was deliberately hiding it and did not ask. After all, it was not necessarily a good thing to know too much about some things. They quickly walked away, and the sound of their conversation gradually disappeared. Ning Ziyuan had a look of realization. I was wondering why he stopped fighting with you. He must have found a better place to go. What was their purpose in entering the cabinet? Wasn't it to enter the cabinet in the future and become an assistant minister? Even if that was not the case, going to the 6 ministries was also excellent. Those who truly wanted to stay in Hanlin Academy for the rest of their lives were probably rare. Xiao Hung did not say anything. This was probably Grand Tutor Zhuang's idea. With Zhuang Yuheng's qualifications, it was a bit far-fetched to enter the cabinet. It was probably because Empress Dowager Zhuang's attitude towards Prince Ning that made Grand Tutor Zhuang feel uneasy. He no longer trusted Empress Dowager Zhuang wholeheartedly. He wanted more power in the hands of the Zhuang family. Right now, in the cabinet, the 2 secondary secretaries were his people. Half of the 6 cabinet scholars were also his people. If an Junwang was added in the future after Grand Secretary Yuan abdicated, the cabinet would completely belong to the Zhuang family. Ning Ziyuan saw that Xiao Lulang was deep in thought and thought that he was disappointed. He quickly patted his shoulder and comforted. Lulang, don't be discouraged. You will also be able to enter the cabinet one day. Xiao Hung was not thinking about entering the cabinet. He was thinking about whether Grand Tutor Zhuang, that old man, had gone to poke his great aunt's heart again. Imperial Palace. The Emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang left court and headed towards Renshou Palace together. Empress Dowager Zhuang sat on the Phoenix sedan and looked strangely at the Emperor's sedan. She asked in confusion, "Your Pure Flowers Palace is over there." The Emperor shamelessly said, "I'm going to Imperial Mother's palace to eat." Empress Dowager Zhuang was silent for a moment before she made a sound of agreement. Emperor, Imperial Mother actually did not refuse. After eating, Empress Dowager Zhuang said to the Emperor, "Come to the study for a moment." Imperial Mother, do you need this sun for something? The emperor asked after entering the study. Empress Dowager Zhuang said seriously, "This widow has thought about it. The emperor has been ruling for many years. It is time for this widow to return the power to the emperor." The empress was startled. "Imperial Mother, why do you say this?" Empress Dowager Zhuang sighed. "From tomorrow onwards, this widow will no longer be ruling from behind the curtain." A sentence flashed through the emperor's mind. Is there no more joy in going to court with Imperial Mother? Imperial Mother. Empress Dowager Zhuang faintly looked at him. "Haven't you always wanted this widow to not go to the throne room? Your wish has been fulfilled." "What? Are you still not happy?" "That was in the past," the emperor mumbled. Ever since the truth of concubine Jing's matter came to light, he realized that he had misunderstood his imperial mother all these years. Imperial Mother had countless opportunities to kill him, but she had never done so. On the contrary, it was he who had framed his imperial mother time and time again, even causing her to contract leprosy. If it wasn't for the little miracle doctor, he would probably be living in regret for the rest of his life. Moreover, leaving emotional factors aside, his imperial mother was indeed more daring and resourceful than him. Empress Dowager Zhuang sighed faintly. "This widow is old. It is time for me to have a few days of leisure." The emperor's face darkened. "Imperial Mother, you actually just want to go to Jadewater Alley to play cards. And the kind that doesn't bring him along." Empress Dowager Zhuang. Cough, is it that obvious? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/89642_896/10989285. HTML Genius, memorize the website address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Bikuj mobile reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 465. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. The emperor looked at her bitterly with an expression that said, "I knew it." Empress Dowager Zhuang flatly denied, "I didn't. When can I go play cards?" The emperor continued to complain. Then, Imperial Mother doesn't want to go to bed early. Empress Dowager Zhuang, when did your brain become so good? Her habit of getting up early for many years was gone in a year by Shui Alley. It was quite helpless. In the end, the emperor promised Empress Dowager Zhuang that he wouldn't attend politics from behind the curtain. After all, he was the emperor. No matter how much he trusted Empress Dowager Zhuang, he couldn't help but desire to govern alone. This was a very contradictory mentality. Empress Dowager Zhuang had lived to this age. What didn't she understand? It was normal for the ruler of a country to have such a mentality. Otherwise, if everyone was like the crown prince, giving unconditional, bottomless indulgence and trust to a person, in the end, if the person next to him wanted the country, would he be willing to give it up? Being an emperor or a benevolent ruler wasn't a bad thing. He could be soft where he needed to be, but he couldn't lack the ambition of an emperor. However, the emperor didn't promise Empress Dowager Zhuang that he wouldn't attend politics from behind the curtain. Empress Dowager Zhuang had to agree to play cards with him 3 or 4 times a month. She also had to set aside time every day to deal with state affairs with him. It was time to spend alone time with Muhu in the afternoon. Empress Dowager Zhuang didn't completely give up power. She just didn't go to court. She still had to play tricks in private. Lu Lang was promoted, but the money he received wasn't enough to pay the little monk's rent every month. Alas, there were so many children at home. The burden was heavy. Hanlin Academy. Xiao Hung came out from his shift and saw a carriage parked in the alley diagonally across from him. The coachman was an unfamiliar face, and he had never seen the carriage before. However, Xiao Yolang's intuition told him that the owner of the carriage was waiting for him. There was no one around, so he didn't bother to disguise himself. He strode over. The coachman didn't ask and directly put down a wooden stool. He hesitated for a moment. Princess Xinyang opened the door slightly. Xiao Hung was slightly taken aback, and then he stepped into the carriage. He sat down opposite Princess Xinyang. Princess Xinyang said to the coachman, "Let's go to the clinic." "Yes." The coachman waved his whip, and the wheels began to turn. Princess Xinyang's complexion was better than when she had just returned to the capital. Today, it was even possible to see a bit of rosy color. She didn't smile much, but the warmth in her eyes almost flowed. "I came to see you," she said. "Yes." A certain someone felt a little uncomfortable. Princess Xinyang smiled and looked at his right foot. "I saw you walking just now. Has your leg recovered?" "Yes, it's done." Xiao Hung answered vaguely and did not hide anything. After being separated for so long, it would be difficult for them to return to their previous intimacy. Moreover, she had hurt him deeply. Princess Xinyang felt even more awkward than Xiao Hung, but she didn't show it on her face. Princess Xinyang smiled and pointed at the cane beside him, asking, "Then why don't you throw this away?" "I'll throw it away in a few days," Xiao Hung said. "Oh." Princess Xinyang instantly understood. A mother knew her son best. How could she not understand what he was thinking? Truly, her son had grown up and was no longer under her control. In the past, when he was engaged to Wen Linlang, he had never cared so much about a girl. Princess Xinyang lowered her eyes to hide her smile and changed the topic. "Have you heard about Zhuang Yuling entering the cabinet?" "I have," Xiao Hung said. Princess Xinyang continued. "It was Grand Tutor Zhuang's idea. He entered the cabinet and started as a 7th-rank secretary. It seemed like a demotion, but in reality, his status rose. So his official position had already been decided." Xiao Hung wasn't surprised that Princess Xinyang knew about this inside information. Back when he was still the young Marquis of Zhaodu, he often saw all kinds of jaw-dropping insider information in Princess Xinyang's study. "I heard that Grand Tutor Yuan appreciates you." Princess Xinyang's words had a hidden meaning. Xiao Hung paused. "It can't be considered appreciation. He only met me once or twice and said a few words to me." Xiao Hung understood Princess Xinyang's meaning. She was worried that he would feel unbalanced because Zhuang Yuheng had been promoted faster than him. If so, she could also use her connections to get him into the cabinet. "I'm doing very well in the Hanlin Academy," Xiao Lulang said bluntly. Some things could be taken shortcuts, but others weren't. In his opinion, getting involved in the cabinet at this time wasn't necessarily a good thing. Princess Xinyang was secretly relieved. Just now, she had been probing Xiao Hang's intentions. When he was young, Xiao Hang was a very competitive child. He wanted to be first in everything. Of course, he really did have the ability, but officialdom was like a battlefield. Sometimes, although you won the battle, you lost the battlefield. Xiao Hang's current temperament was far beyond her expectations. As the two were talking, the sound of galloping horse hooves suddenly came from ahead. Immediately after, it sounded like the rider had run into some stall. Miserable cries rose up one after another. "Aya! The horse is out of control." Princess Xinyang's coachman shouted loudly. It wasn't their horse that was out of control, but the other side's. It was rampaging, knocking down passers-by, and had no intention of stopping. Seeing that it was about to hit their carriage, it was too late to turn around. Long Yi flew over, opened the roof of the carriage, and grabbed Princess Xinyang and Xiao Hung. The carriage was smashed apart by the crazy horse. Long Yi put the two people on the roof, then went to grab the coachman who was about to lose his life under the horse's hooves. Long Yi, that child. A child was scared silly. He stood in the middle of the street in a daze, and the crazy horse rushed towards him. Long Yi grabbed the coachman with one hand and the child with the other. Finally, he rushed to take the child away before the crazy horse could hit them. Princess Xinyang secretly breathed a sigh of relief, but before she could finish, the soles of her feet slipped, and she fell from the roof. Xiao Hung reached out to grab her, but they also fell down together. Long Yi didn't have time to put down the coachman and child. He flashed over, but he only caught Xiao Hung, and Princess Xinyang slipped from his shoulder. At this critical moment, another tall and mighty figure descended from the sky. He hugged Princess Xinyang's soft waist and slowly descended from the sky. This person had a devastatingly beautiful face and a pair of soul-stirring eyes. He was Marquis Xianping, who was hailed by the emperor as the face of Zhao country. Marquis Xianping stood there with Princess Xinyang in his arms. His posture was handsome. A burst of enthusiastic cheers erupted from the crowd. Marquis Xianping raised his eyebrows and smiled. "Princess, long time no see." Princess Xinyang's face was cold. "Are you done acting handsome? If you're done, then let this princess down." TSK, unromantic. Marquis Xianping curled his lips with regret and put Princess Xinyang down. That crazy horse was already under Chang Jing's control. Tonight, Chang Jing wanted to eat roasted horse meat. Marquis Xianping waved his hand at the crowd. "Okay, disperse, disperse. Don't look. Haven't you seen a hero saving a beauty?" Everyone's mouths twitched. Although it was the truth, why did you say it yourself? Could you be any more shameless? The crowd finally dispersed. Marquis Xianping looked at Princess Xinyang and then at the smashed carriage. He clicked his tongue. "Looks like the princess can only sit in this marquis carriage." Chang Jing drove a luxurious and flashy carriage over. Princess Xinyang didn't get on. She walked forward and came to an unfamiliar carriage. She planned to take out money to hire the other party's carriage. Marquis Xianping looked at her with his arms crossed. "That's also this marquis carriage." Princess Xinyang walked forward again and chose an inconspicuous carriage. "It's also this marquis carriage. It's also this marquis carriage." It's this marquis carriage again." Princess Xinyang. Did the surnamed Xiao contract for an entire street of carriages? Digression. "Oh, you're not stingy this time?" The carriage drivers trembled. "Can you let us go?" The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964/2_896/1098695119. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikaj mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 466. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. Princess Xinyang finally got into the first luxurious and flashy carriage with a dark face. Marquis Xianping also got into the carriage and threw the whip in his hand to Chang Jing. "Be steady. The princess doesn't like bumps." Oh. Chang Jing took the whip and lashed it down, causing the carriage to jolt. Marquis Xianping. The couple sat down in the carriage. Marquis Xianping looked at Princess Xinyang calmly and said with a faint smile, "I went to Fengdu Mountain to find you, but you didn't want to see me. Instead, you ran back to the capital. Why? Are you hiding from me?" "Why should I hide from you?" Princess Xinyang said mildly. Marquis Xianping's lips twitched, revealing a roguish smile. "Come on, Qin Fengwan. Ever since Xiao Hong died, you've been hiding from me. Sometimes I even suspect that the fire was set by you. You don't have the face to face me at all?" Princess Xinyang turned her face away. Marquis Xianping looked at the roof of the carriage and said nonchalantly, "Enough." Let your whatever take Xiao Hung down. He's flying around in the sky. Even if he's not tired, I'm tired for my son. After Xiao Hung was rescued by Long Yi, or to be exact, after Marquis Xianping appeared, Xiao Hung had Long Yi take him away. However, Marquis Xianping's seemingly casual words had many important points. First, he knew about Long Yi. Second, he had already determined that Xiao Lulang was Xiao Hung. Long Yi had always been a secret guard in the princess's residence. It was only after going to Fengdu Mountain that Long Yi gradually came into the light. During this time, Long Yi had never met Marquis Xianping. In other words, Marquis Xianping already knew about Long Yi's existence before the fire at the Imperial College. Since he even knew about the most powerful Long Yi, then the other Dragon Shadow Guards naturally wouldn't be a problem. As for when he knew, there was no way to know. Perhaps it was 4 years ago, or even earlier. As for the second matter, judging from the situation in the capital, Princess Xinyang guessed that Marquis Xianping had gone to Fengdu Mountain to ask her to come back and identify Xiao Hung. Now that she had appeared in the same carriage as Xiao Hung, he already had the answer, without her personally telling him. Marquis Xianping said, "Chang Jing, go and catch those two flying in the sky." Chang Jing, who was driving, leaped into the air. After a while, Chang Jing returned to the carriage with a swollen face. "I can't win." Chang Jing felt wronged, but she didn't say anything. Marquis Xianping snorted, "You deserve it. I'll let you drive recklessly next time." Chang Jing's face was full of black lines. "So you were just taking revenge on me for bumping off the carriage." Chang Jing was a little emotional. He really wanted to drive the carriage until it flew, but he couldn't beat Marquis Xianping, that old fox. This was a very sad story. Inside the carriage, Marquis Xianping leaned lazily against the wall of the carriage. Behind him was a soft and thick pillow. His slender legs were crossed, and one hand was on the armrest, while the other was gently placed on his leg. His slender fingers tapped on his knee. Princess Xinyang sat across from him with an indifferent expression and didn't say a word. Marquis Xianping smiled lightly. "Qin Fengwan, do you want to say it yourself, or do I have to ask you one question at a time?" Princess Xinyang asked, "What do you want me to say?" Marquis Xianping said, "Everything." Princess Xinyang looked at him. "Why don't you first tell me what happened with the crazy horse just now?" Marquis Xianping said, "What? You suspect that I did it? I'm not that bored." Princess Xinyang didn't say anything. Marquis Xianping narrowed his eyes at her. "Wait, are you suspecting that someone tried to assassinate you, or Xiao Hung?" Princess Xinyang slowly exhaled and looked at him without blinking. "Before I answer all your questions, why don't you answer one of mine first? Who was that female slave from the Yen Kingdom?" After long, he sent Xiao Hung back to Jadewater Alley. He immediately left. Before he left, he met little Jingkong and exchanged small manly punches with little Jingkong. Lulang. Just as Xiao Hung was about to enter the room, he heard someone calling him from behind. He turned around and said politely, "Auntie, what's the matter?" And he handed him a jar with a smile. "This is the pickled vegetables I just made. Take it." "No need. I haven't finished the ones you gave me last time." Xiao Hung declined. Auntie stuffed the jar into his arms and said, not allowing him to refuse, take it. You have a lot of family members, so you can finish it all at once. Besides, it's just a jar of pickled vegetables. It's not that valuable." Xiao Hung was not good at rejecting such pure kindness, so he accepted it shyly. "Thank you, Auntie He." As soon as Auntie He left, Uncle Zhao from next door came over again. He called him Lulang and gave him a basket of eggs. He said that Gu Jiao made salted duck eggs last time and gave some to the neighbors. He didn't have anything to give in return, so these eggs were laid by his own chicken. That's right. Since little Jing Kong persisted in running chickens for a year, Pushui Alley also started to raise poultry one after another. Yao Shi called out to him from inside. "He's here." Xiao Hung carried the jar and the basket into the house. His family did not change the way they addressed Xiao Hung. Xiao Hung felt that this was also very good. He did not have a courtesy name, so in the future, Lu Lang would be his courtesy name. He was Xiao Hung, and he was also Xiao Lulang. He would finish Xiao Liulang's unfinished life for him. He would see the scenery that Xiao Lulang had not seen before. Xiao Heng's clothes were too small, so Yao Shi bought new ones for him. The last time he tried them on, the sleeves were a little narrow, so Yao Shi changed them. Xiao Hung tried them on again. They fit him very well. He thanked Yao Shi and told Yao Shi about how Auntie He and Elder Zhao had come to deliver things. They're too polite. Yao Shi did not know whether to laugh or cry. She asked Yuya, to keep the things properly. Xiao Hung returned to the West Room. Little Jinkong had finished school early today. At this time, he was sticking out his little butt and plunging into his big box. He threw out the things inside with a swish, and no one knew what treasure he was looking for. Xiao Hung felt a headache coming on. He had just cleaned up for him the day before yesterday. Xiao Hung poked a certain someone's little butt with his walking stick. "What are you doing?" Little Jinkong stopped rummaging and pulled his little head out of the box. He turned around and looked at Xiao Hung while panting. He said disappointedly, "I knew it's a bad brother-in-law. Jiao Jiao would not poke his little butt. Why is it so messy again? I'm looking for something. Jiao Jiao's birthday is coming soon. I want to give Jiao Jiao a surprise." Gu Jiao's birthday was next month. There were less than 40 days left. Xiao Hung looked at the little guy's sweaty face and suddenly said mischievously, "What a coincidence. I want to give Jiao Jiao a surprise too." Little Jinkong patted his little chest and said, "Then my surprise will be bigger than yours." Xiao Hung raised his eyebrows. "That's not necessarily true." Little Jinkong put his hands on his waist and stamped his feet. "Jiao Jiao likes me the most." Xiao Hung curled his lips. "But she'll definitely like the surprise I give her the most." Little Jinkong stared at him. You, what's your surprise?" The little guy suddenly became nervous. Princess Xinyang was right. Little Jinkong was very similar to Xiao Hung when he was young. For example, their strong desire to win was almost the same. Xiao Hung bent down and looked at him at eye level. He imitated his usual behavior and proudly shook his little head. "I'm not telling you." So angry. Little Jinkong secretly clenched his little fists. He would not lose to his bad brother-in-law. The biggest surprise must be the one he gave Jiao Jiao. There was a military book that said, "Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win 100 battles." He had to know his bad brother-in-law's surprise before he could defeat him. Where did his bad brother-in-law hide his surprise? He would definitely find it. In the carriage, Princess Xinyang finished telling the whole truth. Marquis Xianping's face was extremely cold. He was not someone who often got angry, but he was a little unable to hold it in. He forced himself to calm down. He did not have a habit of getting angry at women. Qin Fengwan, do you think that this marquis is especially useless? That I can't even protect my own son? We haven't even fought. How do you know that I can't beat him? Princess Xinyang said, Look, I knew you would have this reaction. You didn't meet them. No matter how much I say, you will only think that I am exaggerating. All right, just treat it as me hating Aheng and not wanting to see her. So I deliberately sent her away. Marquis Xianping frowned. What do you mean just treat it as me? If it's true, then it's true. If it's not, then it's not. You scholars like to beat around the bush. You have 7 or 8 meanings in one sentence. I don't understand. Princess Xinyang turned her face away and said, If you don't understand, then forget it. Either way, that woman was provoked by you. It was you who caused Aheng to suffer and also caused my son's death. I won't defend Xiao Heng's matter, but your son's death. Marquis Xianping paused. He seemed to have realized that there was something wrong with the way he addressed her. After pondering for a moment, he said, Your son and mine really were not caused by this marquis. I'm afraid this debt cannot be counted on this marquis. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964/_899642_1098688525. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 467. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. Princess Xinyang's tone was as cold as ice. Why can't you be blamed? If the woman you brought back didn't attract the assassins, how could my son have been poisoned? Marquis Schwamping's frown deepened. You think the group of assassins who poisoned him was after her, wasn't it? Princess Xinyang asked back. Marquis Xianping fell silent. Princess Xinyang sneered. You don't dare to speak? Haven't you always hated being the scapegoat? Tell me, how did I wrongly accuse you? Marquis Xianping looked at her with a complicated expression. Qin Fengwan, will this affect your relationship with Xiaoheng? What do you mean? Princess Xinyang didn't understand. Marquis Schwamping's gaze was deep. Do you think that group of assassins who came after his mother will make you resent him? Without waiting for Princess Xinyang's reply, Marquis Xianping continued. I'm not a good person to begin with. It wasn't easy for me to be a human, but I was wronged. Qin Fengwan, you asked yourself. No matter what the result is, don't blame me. Princess Xinyang felt an ominous premonition rising in her heart. Marquis Xianping looked at her, his gaze solemn and cold. Qin Fengwan, we agreed that you wouldn't fall in love with me, and it's best if I don't like you. On the night of our wedding, you told me not to touch you, and that we would always be husband and wife in name and not interfere with each other. But then, I touched you, and you got pregnant. Let me ask you, do you want this child? If you do, he'll be my legitimate son. I, Xiao Ji, will only have one legitimate son in my life, and that's your child. If you don't want it, I won't say anything. The stomach is yours, so it's up to you to give birth to it. You know very well whether I want this child or not. Back then, the princess's residence and Marquis Schwamping's residence were heavily guarded. It was even more impenetrable than the imperial palace. Not even a fly could fly in. Let me ask you, why would assassins poison the child? Princess Xinyang's eyes trembled. You, Marquis Xianping sneered and nodded. That's right, that's what I meant. There's a spy. There's a traitor around you. Princess Xinyang's expression changed. That's impossible. I have the dragon shadow guards guarding the 2 children day and night. How could they have the chance to poison them? Marquis Xianping's sneer froze on his lips, and his eyes turned cold. That's right. You have the dragon shadow guards guarding your children. Who would dare to poison them? Think about it yourself. Princess Xinyang's mind exploded like a thunderclap. Dragon shadow guard. No, that can't be. Why would the dragon shadow guard poison her child? This conjecture was too bold and could even be said to be absurd. She laughed to herself. However, not long after, her smile gradually froze on her face. Marquis Xianping was right. At that time, the Marquis Xianping Manor and the Princess Manor were indeed heavily guarded. Not to mention outsiders. Even the Emperor's dragon shadow guards might not be able to sneak in without alerting anyone, because she also had the dragon shadow guard. In that situation, other than the dragon shadow guard herself, no one else had the chance to make a move. However, she trusted the dragon shadow guard too much, so she never considered this flaw. Princess Xinyang resisted the trembling of her body and tried to grasp the last possibility. Why, isn't it that group of people? Isn't that group of people suspicious at all? Marquis Xianping said, when they came, and when they targeted Xiaohong, I really don't know. Because Xiaohong was rarely by his side. When that group of people targeted Xiaohong, he wasn't there. So he didn't realize it. He said seriously, but I can tell you clearly that when the two children were in trouble, that group of people had not yet arrived in Zhao country. Princess Xinyang looked into his eyes. Why are you so sure? Marquis Xianping met her examining gaze without dodging. She said it herself. She said that, if she didn't die, she would attract that group of people. When he said this, there wasn't a trace of emotion in his eyes. Princess Xinyang moved her eyes away. What she said before she died? Yes, Marquis Xianping said. Then is she really dead? Princess Xinyang asked. Marquis Xianping sighed. In any case, I buried her myself. Princess Xinyang smiled bitterly. You even buried her yourself. That's rare. Marquis Xianping pursed his lips and didn't argue with her. He looked deeply at her. She didn't implicate Xiaoqing, and Xiaoqing didn't die because of her and Xiaohong. Princess Xinyang's focus was on that name. You still remember his name? Marquis Xianping paused with a complicated expression and sighed. How could I not remember? I chose the name. Have you forgotten? Princess Xinyang cast a sidelong glance at him. That's because you only recognize that character, right? Marquis Xianping, after being married for so many years. Could you give him some face? Marquis Xianping's feelings for Xiaohong actually came very slowly, or more accurately, it came very complicated. At first, he recognized Xiaohong as his legitimate son. When Princess Xinyang wanted to raise Xiaohong by her side, he refused in his heart. But Princess Xinyang had just experienced the pain of losing her son, and he couldn't deprive her of her right to be a mother at that point. In the past, he really did treat Xiaohong coldly. He wasn't a competent father, but Princess Xinyang was an excellent mother. She taught Xiaohong very well. Aside from not practicing martial arts, he became very elegant. This was the opposite of his desire to teach a Xiaoji who could kill in all directions. This child wouldn't even kill a chicken, let alone kill in all directions. I've said all that needs to be said. You can think about the rest yourself. After Marquis Xianping finished speaking, he lifted the curtain and had Changjing stop the carriage. He sat in the carriage behind and left. Are we going to the princess's residence? Changjing asked. Princess Xinyang was immersed in the terrifying storm of chaos and didn't hear Changjing's words. Yes, okay. Changjing said to herself and drove the carriage to the princess's residence. The princess's residence still retained its original appearance, including the 2 delivery rooms. She treated Marquis Xianping with respect and didn't interfere with each other. This was the agreement before the wedding. Marquis Xianping said that he touched her, but that was his way of saying that he took responsibility for everything. But actually, she couldn't blame him. She drank too much wine and took the wrong medicine. Marquis Xianping looked at her and asked seriously, Qin Fengwan, do you know what you're doing? He had a reaction, but he was very restrained and calm. Reaction was instinct and restraint was a choice. She said, I know, Xiaoqi. I know. Marquis Xianping actually didn't bring that female slave from the Yan kingdom to her. That female slave came by herself. She clearly remembered the first sentence she said to her. I heard you're a princess. Can I live in your princess's residence? She was a woman who exuded a wild power, making people think of unruly horses on the grasslands. She had wheat-colored skin, deep facial features, and rough skin that had been tempered by the wind and sand. However, her eyebrows were exceptionally exquisite and deep. The women of the Zhao kingdom were beautiful with fair skin. When Princess Xinyang saw her, she realized for the first time that beauty had nothing to do with skin color. Her Zhao kingdom language wasn't very good. After explaining for a while, Princess Xinyang finally understood what she meant. It turned out that old Madame Xiao was overjoyed when she found out that she was pregnant. She was afraid that something would happen to her, so she sent 17 or 18 servant girls to serve her. She was very annoyed. I'm Marquis Xianping's wife. I know, but you don't love him. That's why you can live in my princess residence with your belly sticking out? Princess Xinyang didn't know whether to say that she didn't know what was good for her, or that she was extremely daring. In the end, Princess Xinyang still let her live in. There was no other reason than that she was a female slave from the Yen Kingdom and knew many things about the Yen Kingdom. Princess Xinyang was thirsty for knowledge. They got along very freely. She was different from the women of the Zhao Kingdom. She had a different kind of free and straightforward character and didn't have many tricks up her sleeve. Thus, Princess Xinyang never expected that she would kill someone else's son in order to let her son live. But on second thought, wasn't this something she would do? She really was a ruthless and decisive woman. No wonder she could be brought back by Marquis Xianping. Marquis Xianping was dissolute and unruly outside, but he still abided by the rules in the residence. He wouldn't easily touch the servant girls in the residence. Old Madame Xiao had cried, made a fuss, and threatened to hang herself to get the 2 illegitimate sons. He also never brought back any woman. Xiao Heng's mother was the only one. He also wouldn't let other women offend her. There was once a courtesan who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth who blocked her carriage and said she was willing to go home with her and be her cow or horse. She only asked to be able to wait by her and Marquis Xianping's side. The next day, that courtesan disappeared from the capital. After thinking about so many things, Princess Xinyang's emotions finally calmed down. She began to seriously consider the possibility of the Dragon Shadow Guards betraying her. The answer was almost impossible. If the Dragon Shadow Guards could betray their master, then they wouldn't be the Dragon Shadow Guards anymore. The Dragon Shadow Guards were given to her by the late Emperor. They only listened to her and the late Emperor's orders. But before she and Marquis Xianping were engaged, the late Emperor had already passed away. Could it be that he gave the Dragon Shadow Guards the order to poison the 2 children from underground? How did he do it? A dream? Wait a minute. There was one person who wasn't the late Emperor's Dragon Shadow Guards. Long Yi. Just as this thought flashed through Princess Xinyang's mind, she eliminated it. At that time, she had sent Long Yi to Fengdu Mountain to quell the chaos. He only returned when Xiao Heng was almost 1 month old. He simply didn't have the opportunity to commit the crime. So, was it really done by the other 4 Dragon Shadow Guards? But she couldn't figure it out. She didn't give them the order to poison the 2 children. The late Emperor even more wouldn't. In this world, if there wasn't a third person who could also give them orders, then the late Emperor really crawled out from under the coffin? It couldn't be that the late Emperor, on his deathbed, had them plot against her and Marquis Xianping's son. The late Emperor clearly knew that it was impossible for her and Marquis Xianping to have a child. Her thoughts came to an abrupt end. Princess Xinyang was stunned. She seemed to have inadvertently thought of something. At that time, Marquis Xianping was still young, but the late Emperor saw his potential. He was the youngest Marquis of Zhao country and was personally conferred the title by the late Emperor. The late Emperor regarded him as his right-hand man. But under the late Emperor's regard, he was firmly on guard against Marquis Xianping. The late Emperor had secretly arranged the marriage between her and Marquis Xianping. Why secretly? Because if the late Emperor could live for a long time, he planned to personally kill Marquis Xianping. If he died early, then she would kill Marquis Xianping. But at the same time, the late Emperor also understood that Zhao country was in danger and couldn't do without Marquis Xianping. So the late Emperor decided to use Marquis Xianping to the greatest extent. As long as he didn't rebel, he would be allowed to live. If he had any thoughts of rebellion, he would be immediately killed. But Marquis Xianping was extremely vigilant. Normal assassins couldn't get close to him. The late Emperor thought of a honey trap. Of all the princesses, the late Emperor had chosen her because he knew that she would never be moved by Marquis Xianping. Only a person who wouldn't be moved by Marquis Xianping could kill him at any time. But the late Emperor was born in the royal family and had been the Emperor for so many years. How could he not understand that the affairs of the world were unpredictable? What if her heart was moved? The late emperor didn't allow her to give birth to Marquis Xianping's child. He didn't allow her to have an unclear and unbreakable bond with Marquis Xianping. Directly killing Marquis Xianping wouldn't work either. The country needed him. The only prerequisite for killing Marquis Xianping was that he had thoughts of rebellion. As long as he didn't rebel, he could live. But her child couldn't live. The Dragon Shadow Guard's initial target was little Xiaoheng. Unfortunately, even though little Xiaoheng was born half a month earlier, he was about the same size as little Xiaoheng when he was born. The Dragon Shadow Guard must have made a mistake the first time. The second time, he accurately fed the poison into little Xiaoheng's mouth. Princess Xianyang didn't know why he used poison and not something else. It was all the late emperor's consideration. Perhaps it was to prevent the investigation of the Dragon Shadow Guard, or perhaps the late emperor left his grandson with the last bit of mercy and left him with a decent corpse. Princess Xianyang's strength was sucked out. Her legs weakened and she fell to the ground. Princess Eugene flew in. She didn't wait for Princess Xianyang's return at Jadewater Alley. Instead, someone from the princess's residence sent a message saying that the princess had returned, but the situation seemed a bit off. She hurried over. Princess, what's wrong? Eugene knelt in front of her and asked while holding her slightly trembling shoulders. Princess Xianyang's face was bloodless. Her eyes were empty, as if they were filled with endless sorrow, but she couldn't cry a single tear. Princess Xianyang said with dull eyes, "I thought that when Father gave the Dragon Shadow Guard to me, he at least trusted me and thought I was the only one who could bear this heavy responsibility." Eugene supported her with heartache. Princess Xianyang laughed self-deprecatingly. "But in the end, he still didn't trust me. He was on guard against Marquis Xianping, and on guard against me. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_89642826/109868080. HTML Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg. Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 468. The latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. After Marquis Xianping got into the other carriage, the coachman asked him where he was going, but he didn't say anything. His mood was terrible, so he didn't want to reveal his emotions in front of Princess Xianyang when he got off the carriage. He was a man. No matter how angry he was, he could only hold it in and not vent it on a woman. The coachman didn't have the guts like Chang Jing to take him to the princess's residence or Marquis Xuanping's residence on his own. They just wandered aimlessly on the streets, circling the imperial city again and again. Only when the two horses were about to see stars did Marquis Xuanping's calm voice finally come from the carriage. "Go to Jishui Alley." The coachman secretly sighed in relief. The sky was almost dark. Finally, they didn't have to wait until dawn. Marquis Xuanping's mood slowly calmed down. When the emperor had arranged a marriage between him and Qin Fengwan, he was actually very surprised. His younger sister had already entered the palace as the empress, and the Shao family was already firmly tied to the emperor's boat. There was really no need for the emperor to tie the knot. Moreover, his reputation wasn't good. It would be wrong for a princess to marry him. At that time, the emperor didn't tell him that everything was the late emperor's last will. He thought about it and wondered if the princess had taken a fancy to him. It wasn't impossible. After all, he was handsome. He grew up in the military camp and hung out with a group of men all day long. His father didn't teach him how to treat his wife well, but he vaguely knew that his mother wasn't happy. There were so many concubines at home who came to his mother to set the rules. His mother looked impressive, but she was actually very bitter inside. He had seen Princess Xinyang before. When a man looked at a woman, it would be a lie to say that he didn't look at her face, especially at first sight. Princess Xinyang was very beautiful, so beautiful that he couldn't describe it. No man wouldn't be moved by such a woman. He sincerely wanted to marry her. When he went through the wedding ceremony with her, he was still happily thinking that from now on, his Xiao Ji would also have a family. He was wearing a bright red wedding robe and happily lifted her veil, but she used an ice-cold dagger to point at his heart, F***CK. Marquis Xian Ping's emotions, which had finally calmed down, surged again. He tugged at his collar, and a trace of irritation flashed across his brows. Not there yet? The coachman was startled by this seemingly calm, but actually angry tone. He hurriedly said, "Quick, quick, quick, quick. Don't go to Jadewater Alley," Marquis Xianping said. "Ah, then where are we going? Aren't you changing your mind a little too quickly?" It was not that Marquis Xianping did not want to see Xiaohong, but he was a little irritated at the moment and was afraid that he would scare his son. After thinking about it, he wanted to find that old monkey, Gu Chao, to fight or something. When they arrived, they found out that old monkey had gone on a long trip. He didn't tell them where he was going. It seemed that he was going on a sightseeing tour. It was impossible to go sightseeing, not in this lifetime. The old monkey must have been sent by the emperor to do something. Marquis Xianping thought about it and obediently returned to Marquis Xianping's residence. He called Steward Lu over and listened to Steward Lu recount the recent events in the capital. Princess Xinyang had already mentioned the King of Ning. Old concubine Jing had learned about it from Steward Lu. Old concubine Jing had announced to the public that she had died suddenly. Steward Lu was in contact with Cunning Palace, so he naturally knew the inside story. Old concubine Jing was a remnant of the previous dynasty. She was the one who had ordered Xiao Hong to be poisoned when he was young. She was the one who had instigated the relationship between Empress Dowager Zhuang and the emperor. She was also the one who had planned Princess Ning An's marriage. Poor Princess Ning An, to fall into the hands of such a vicious mother. Steward Lu sighed deeply. Old concubine Jing's death had caused a stir in the capital for a while, but it had cooled down a long time ago. This was the first time Marquis Xianping had heard of it, so he should have been shocked. However, he had discovered that the old chancellor was targeting old concubine Jing before he left the capital, so he had more or less guessed that the old concubine wasn't as simple as she seemed. He just hadn't guessed that she had something to do with the remnants of the previous dynasty. According to Empress Xiao, old concubine Jing had been in close contact with the frontier fortress over the years. They all thought that she was communicating with Princess Ning, but in fact, she was contacting the remnants of the previous dynasty. The emperor had ordered Tang Yueshan to go to the frontier fortress as an imperial envoy. On the surface, he was there to visit Princess Ning, but in reality, he was there to clean up the remnants of the previous dynasty. The credit should have gone to my brother, but he's not in the capital. That's why His Majesty appointed Tang Ming. These were Empress Xiao's exact words. Marquis Xianping had no interest in credit. He was good at war, but that didn't mean he liked it. Some things were responsibilities and missions that had to be shouldered. If he couldn't protect his country, the country behind him would be destroyed, and his family would be destroyed. Empress Xiao didn't know about the old Marquis, but she didn't need to say anything. Marquis Xianping had guessed it himself. He must have gone north with Tang Yueshan. Tang Yueshan was a man who rejoiced in grandiose achievements. There was only one reason why he would allow the old monkey to travel with him. The old monkey wasn't going to war. Are they going to rescue Princess Ning An? Marquis Xianping rubbed his chin thoughtfully. If the prince consort was also a pawn of old concubine Jing, then Princess Ning, and situation wasn't optimistic. Marquis Xianping couldn't help but frown at the thought of Princess Ning, and back then, Empress Dowager Zhuang seemed to want to set him up with Princess Ning. But that girl was always like a frightened rabbit. He didn't like it. He was a man who didn't know how to be gentle with women. He couldn't be tainted by such a weak rabbit. "All right, you can leave," Marquis Xianping said tiredly. "Marquis." Steward Lu smiled. "Are we still going to bring the young duke back?" Empress Xiao had contacted Marquis Xianping through Steward Lu, so Steward Lu already knew that the illegitimate child was the young duke. Marquis Xianping glanced at him coolly. "You haven't brought him back." Steward Lu was rendered mute on the spot. He had gone to bring him back from the countryside, but he hadn't brought him back to the manor even after he'd gone to the capital. He hadn't known that he was the young duke, so he hadn't respected him. It was quite scary when he thought about it. Marquis Xianping had planned to rest for a while, but now he stood up and walked towards the door. "I have my own plans for this. Don't get involved. You don't have to go to Jadewater Alley in the future." "Marquis, you don't plan to announce the young duke's identity for the time being?" "Yes." Marquis Xianping would have announced it a long time ago, but this time he was extra cautious. He wasn't afraid of those people, but he had lost Xiaoheng once. He couldn't lose him a second time. When he returned to the capital, he naturally had to report to the emperor. The emperor also expressed his regret that his son had killed Marquis Xianping's son. Marquis Xianping thought about it and decided not to tell the emperor. The emperor had taken away his mining rights before, so he was a person who held a grudge. Dusk fell. Marquis Gu finally got off work. The manor that Empress Dowager Zhuang had ordered was in the final stage and would be completed soon. In fact, he had ordered almost everything. He didn't need to supervise the work every day. However, the demand for bellows had increased recently. In addition, there were several farming tools from the people: water wheels, threshing machines, and grain elevators. The Ministry of Works was busy sending people to learn. With the bellows as an example, this time the Ministry of Works didn't dare to be arrogant anymore. They humbly asked the farmers from the people for advice. Speaking of which, it was strange. Were farmers all so awesome these days? The water wheels were much better than those of the imperial court. The water wheel technology of the Zhao state was also imported from the Liang state. The Liang state had the most advanced water wheels and axles. Combined with ponds, they could achieve a certain level of low water flow and high water flow. However, this kind of civilian water wheel took the advantages of vertical and horizontal wheels to the extreme. The height of water lifting was greatly increased. Even in places with steep terrain, the water flow could be low and high. Marquis Gu had been studying this all day. He hadn't had time to look at the threshing machines and grain elevators. He didn't know which talented person among the people had made such amazing things. The Ministry of Works had already sent people to investigate. Marquis Gu entered the courtyard. His family didn't seem to be there. Only 7 chickens were working in the vegetable garden to catch insects. There isn't even an old woman guarding the door. I asked 2 servants to come over, but they refused. Marquis Gu complained. After he finished complaining, he realized that a chicken had swaggered to his feet. He stopped and looked at the chicken. The chicken also looked at him. This was Little Chi. However, Marquis Gu didn't recognize it. In his eyes, it was just a chicken, just like the other chickens. Speaking of which, it was really funny. Who would bring their chickens to the capital? Were there not many chickens in the capital? Thinking of this stingy behavior, Marquis Gu felt particularly embarrassed. His daughter was raised in the countryside, and his son-in-law wasn't any better. He was really worried that the little guy in Yan and Yao Shi's womb would be led astray by them. Thinking of the little guy that was about to be born, Marquis Gu was in a rare good mood. He looked down at the chicken at his feet. He thought that the chicken wanted to peck him, but it didn't move for a long time. After a while, it swaggered off again. Then, Marquis Gu sadly discovered that it had pooped a pile of chicken poop on his shoes. Marquis Gu. Digression. Recently, there have been more. Can the monthly votes also increase? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/89642_89642826/1098433327. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 469. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more fully. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. In the West Room, Xiaoheng was tidying up the mess in Little Jingkong. Ever since he heard that he had a bigger surprise for Gu Jiao, the little fellow believed that his surprise was hidden in the room. The little fellow rummaged through the boxes and cabinets, but he wouldn't put it back. This was his problem. His family had scolded him several times. Of course, every time he agreed, he would forget about it immediately. Perhaps he didn't forget, but it was as if he didn't clean up at all. Every time, he or Gu Jiao had to clean up again. Xiaoheng was so focused on cleaning up that he didn't know that Marquis Gu had come to the house, nor did he know that he was bullied by his chickens. Brother-in-law. Suddenly, there was a soft call from the door. It sounded a little cautious, but also a little happy. Xiaoheng had just picked up the golden abacus in Little Jingkong. When he heard the voice, he turned around and looked at him. "Ah Yan, what's wrong?" There were no classes in Qinghe Academy today. Gu Xiaoshun went to Master Lu and Nan Xiang's house. Gu Yan said that he was not feeling well and stayed. Gu Yan stood at the door with his hands behind his back. He looked a little reserved. Since Gu Yan came to the house, it was the first time that he had shown this kind of... Well, Xiaoheng wanted to say that he was shy, but he felt that Gu Yan wouldn't be so thin-skinned. Besides, what was there to be shy about in front of him? It wasn't the first day they met. Can I come in?" Gu Yan asked. Even the tone of his voice had become cautious. Wasn't this attitude change a little too big? Xiaoheng looked at Gu Yan strangely and said, "It's okay, come in. Do you have homework that you can't do?" Among the 3 boys in the family, Xiaoheng interacted with Little Jingkong the most. Firstly, they slept in the same room. Secondly, Little Jingkong was more talkative. Thirdly, Little Jingkong had the most homework and tutoring. She didn't interact much with Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshun. Basically, they came over at this hour to ask about homework. Gu Yan's answer was out of Xiaoheng's expectations. He shook his head and said, "I have something to show brother-in-law." "What?" Xiaoheng asked. Gu Yan walked up to Xiaoheng and hesitated for a moment. Then he took out the fist he had hidden behind his back and opened it to reveal a jade thumb ring with a warm texture. If Gu Jiao was here, she would definitely recognize that this was the jade thumb ring that she had accidentally put in her sleeve when she first resuscitated Gu Yan. Gu Yan treasured this jade thumb ring very much and didn't allow anyone to touch it. Gu Yan flew into a rage when Gu Jinyu accidentally touched it once. Gu Jiao was special. Gu Jiao touching it was equivalent to touching it himself. So Gu Yan didn't mind. Xiaoheng looked at the jade thumb ring in his hand and didn't know what he meant. Gu Yan took in his expression, and a trace of disappointment flashed across his eyes. He lowered his eyes and said bitterly, "You really don't remember." "I remember that it's your jade thumb ring," Xiaoheng said. He didn't know if he was right. Gu Yan said sullenly, "No, it's yours." "Mine?" Xiaoheng was surprised. There were 2 meanings to this sentence. One was that it originally belonged to him. The other was that Gu Yan intended to give this jade thumb ring to him. combined with the series of changes in Gu Yan's expression after he entered the room, Xiao Hong felt that it was unlikely to be the second meaning. Otherwise, Gu Yan wouldn't have said, "You really don't remember." "Is it for you?" Xiao Hong asked. He paused and said, "When we were young?" After becoming Xiao Lulang, he didn't remember giving Gu Yan any jewelry. Then, it could only be before he and Gu Yan left the capital. If he remembered correctly, Gu Yan went to the hot spring villa in Yuzhou when he was 4. "It was before I went to the hot spring villa," Gu Yan said gloomily. "My older brother didn't play with me, so I ran out of the house alone." He left the house by ditching the servants and crawling out of the house. This way of leaving the house was a little embarrassing. Gu Yan automatically skimmed over it. "I got lost and then I met you." Getting lost was what he felt at the time. Now that he thought about it, he didn't really get lost. He didn't even run out of the back alley of Marquis Ding, Anne's house. Xiao Hong pointed at the jade thumb ring in his hand. "Then I gave you this." Gu Yan shook his head and said in a small voice, "You didn't give it to me. I wanted it." "Xiao Hong, I couldn't tell that you would ask strangers for things when you were young." "Gu Yan, I secretly ran out of the house. I wanted to go back, but I couldn't find the way. I cried loudly. You passed by and had the servants stop the carriage. You said that the child was cute. Kidnap him and let him be my younger brother." "Xiao Hong, that's not right. Isn't this your short history? How did it become my dark history? I don't have a hobby of kidnapping children. Don't speak nonsense." Xiao Hong lightly coughed. "I should just be joking, right?" Gu Yan continued to sullenly say, "Then your servants carried me away." Xiao Hong, embarrassedly. "You must have been very scared at the time, right?" Gu Yan shook his head. "No, I was very happy. But after a while, you regretted it. You said that I wasn't fun and sent me back." Xiao Hong had no recollection of this matter. Xiao Hong was only 7 years old that year. Although he had reached the age where he could remember things, carrying Gu Yan away was just a spur of the moment. He didn't really take it to heart. He saw so many people every day. How could he remember a child that he had only played with for a short while? Gu Yan was different. He had a weak body since he was young. Madame Yao and Marquis Gu raised him very carefully and never allowed him to leave the house. The number of children he had seen could be counted on one hand. Xiao Hong gave him candy, toys, and even gave him such a beautiful jade thumb ring. He naturally remembered the other person deeply in his heart. However, so many years had passed. His small brain could not remember the other person's appearance and silhouette. He only remembered that he was called Xiao Hong. The young Marquis of Zhao. This was all thanks to Xiao Hong's fame. He would often hear about him from the servants. It could be considered as helping him review his memories. Xiao Hong really did not know that he and Gu Yan had such an experience. Even though he did not believe in fate, he could not help but sigh that fate was indeed a wonderful thing. The two's conversation was interrupted by the sound of chickens and dogs in the courtyard. The two opened the window and saw that Marquis Gu had come. Furthermore, he was fighting with their family's dog, 7 chickens, and a Hai Dong Qing. Marquis Gu was a martial artist. It was not to the extent that he could not kill a dog and a few chickens. However, the dog was his son's pet, and the chickens were poultry that Madame Yao raised every day. He did not have any misgivings about this bird, but this bird was too good at flying. He could not catch it. Xiao Hong and Gu Yan went to the courtyard to stop the chaos. At this time, Marquis Gu was covered in chicken feathers. Marquis Gu was so angry that he hated that he couldn't kill those hateful chickens, especially the smallest one. It pooped on him several times. Gu Yan looked at his father's sorry state and suddenly could not help but laugh out loud. Marquis Gu, stinky brat, do you still remember that I am your father? Gu Yan's laughter continued until Madame Yao came back. Madame Yao was going to give birth next month. Gu Jiao calculated that her due date was the first day of next month, so there was still half a month left. Her limbs were slightly swollen, and it seemed that it was difficult for her to move. Marquis Gu immediately ignored Gu Yan and walked over to help her. Why did you go out again? How did Senior Servant Fang look at you? You should be careful. Madame Yao's action of crossing the threshold really scared him. Was a pregnant woman walking so fiercely? In the past, Madame Ling did not dare to do this. In reality, Madame Yao also felt that this pregnancy was easier than the first. If it was not for the fact that she was getting older, it would have been easier. In the village, she had seen farmers work in the fields with their bellies protruding. Compared to them, she was very delicate. However, compared to the madams and mistresses of large families, she was still a bit fiercer. Marquis, how did you end up like this? Madame Yao looked at him in shock. The old Marquis could not say that he had been bullied by a few chickens. He could not lose face in front of his wife. He gently coughed and said, "It's nothing. The chickens ran out and I caught them." Madame Yao said, "I let them out. I had them catch insects in the vegetable slices." Other people's chickens would occasionally eat vegetable slices, but her family's chickens did not. They only ate insects and were very obedient. Marquis Gu awkwardly said, Then I'll let them out for you in a bit." Madame Yao looked at her family's recipe and said, "No need. We've caught enough for today. Marquis should quickly go change your clothes." Marquis Gu went to the carriage to change his clothes. Then he went to the backyard to talk with Madame Yao. He came today to visit Madame Yao and also to announce good news to Madame Yao. "Our son-in-law has been promoted." Madame Yao's eyes lit up. She unconsciously turned her head to look at Xiao Hong, who was chopping firewood with Gu Yan at the entrance of the kitchen. "Lu Lang, you've been promoted?" Xiao Hong had only received the document in the afternoon and did not have time to tell his family. "Brother-in-law, you've been promoted?" Gu Yan looked excitedly at Xiao Hong. Xiao Hong held the chopper and nodded. "What position? What position?" Gu Yan's little fanboy asked. "Hanlin, Academy's attendant." Xiao Hong said, Marquis Gu laughed in disdain. "How great of an official am I? I'm just a Hanlin Academy's attendant, royal prince, and is about to enter the cabinet as an assistant minister." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated even faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896428286/1098407995. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 470. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Gu Yan's eyes widened as he said, "So what if he's in the cabinet? My brother-in-law is the best." Marquis Gu chuckled. "If he's good, then why didn't he enter the cabinet?" Gu Yan angrily said, "My brother-in-law doesn't want to go. Otherwise, not to mention the cabinet, even the throne room would be open to him." "Oh my, this brat's tone is really big. Does he know what kind of place the cabinet is, and what kind of place the throne room is? In the country of Zhao, only those who have reached 5th rank have the right to meet the emperor. But that doesn't mean they can meet the emperor. Take him, for example. He is the assistant minister of the Ministry of Works, but he hasn't been to court many times. He can go if he wants to? Who do you think he is?" He. Guyen couldn't reveal his brother-in-law's true identity, so his face turned red from holding it in. "His surname is Xiao." Marquis Gu sneered. "So what if his surname is Xiao? There are so many people with the surname Xiao in the world. Do you think everyone is the young Marquis of Zhaodu?" Gu Yan was so angry he became a little pufferfish. What if he is?" Marquis Gu didn't hear that this was the truth and only treated it as a child's angry words. He pointed at Xiao Hong and said to Gu Yan, "He is the young Marquis of Zhao, do I call you father?" Gu Yan looked at her father, at a loss for words. She silently replied in her heart, "Aye, mother." Father and son bickered, but Xiao Hong suddenly spoke. The father and son's voices suddenly stopped, and they both looked at Yao Shi. They saw Yao Shi's face pale as she held her stomach. Her dress was wet. She said in disbelief, I think I'm about to give birth." Yao Shi's outburst came without any warning. She didn't feel any pain before her water broke. Fortunately, Gu Jiao had told her and her family about some things to take note of before giving birth. In this situation, it was best not to forcefully move. Marquis Gu carefully carried Yao Shi back into the room. Xiao Hong said to Gu Yan, "I'm going to boil some water. You let the shadow guards go to the miracle hall to find your sister. If she's not there, then find Dr. Lu first." Dr. Lu was originally a midwife in the vicinity. Because she was very proficient in treating women's diseases, she was hired by Gu Jiao to work in the magical hand hall. Most people were still used to calling her midwife Lu. Xiao Hong followed Gu Jiao and respectfully called her Dr. Lu. Nanny Fang and Yu Ya were putting away the quilts next door. Yu Ya heard the noise and ran over to take a look. She exclaimed, Nanny Fang, Madam is about to give birth. It's not even time yet." Is she going into premature labor again? The expression on Nanny Fang's face changed drastically. She didn't even bother to put away the quilt and hurriedly went through the small door that was opened between the two families. She stumbled as she walked too quickly. Nanny Fang. Yu Ya's sharp eyes caught her and supported her. "Don't panic. The young master's shadow guards have already gone to call the young miss. The young miss will be back soon. Madam will be fine." When Nanny Fang saw that Yu Ya, a young maidservant, was calmer than her, she couldn't help but blush with shame. She sighed and said, "I was too impatient. I wasn't by Madam's side when she gave birth to the young miss and the young master. As a result, she gave birth prematurely and was swapped with the wrong child. There's always been a knot in my heart." Yu Ya couldn't empathize with her like Nanny Fang, but she still nodded in understanding. "I understand. Nanny Fang, don't worry. Madam will be blessed by the heavens. She will definitely give birth safely." Gu Jiao wasn't here. It was Madame Lu who came. Madame Lu was a very experienced midwife. When Marquis Gu asked Huang Zhong to find a midwife for Madame Yao, he had already inquired about this person. Marquis Gu was very fortunate to be able to invite her. However, Gu Yan and Xiao Hong hoped that Gu Jiao would come. However, if Madame Yao's condition allowed it, Madame Lu's medical skills were enough. Unfortunately, Madame Yao's condition wasn't good. "Did you make a mistake?" "My madam's pregnancy went very smoothly. She ate and slept as she pleased. She even walked with the wind. Her stomach wasn't big either. Everyone said that she had a good pregnancy." Madame Lu had been a midwife for many years. It wasn't uncommon for a midwife like Madame Yao to be unable to give birth after a successful pregnancy. A woman didn't just walk through the gates of hell on the day of giving birth. The entire pregnancy was full of unpredictable risks. However, the most risky pregnancy was the fetus. When it came to giving birth, both of them were at great risk. After all, if something happened to the mother, the child in the womb couldn't be saved. Madame Lu naturally wouldn't say anything discouraging in front of Madame Yao. She smiled and said, "Don't worry. It's just beginning. Madame is completely in motion. I've already brought the birth-inducing medicine. Just take it with water." In the past, the birth-inducing medicine had always been prepared on the spot. Gu Jiao felt that this method was time-consuming and inconvenient, so she simply made it into a wax pill. Removing the wax coating, the pill inside could be directly swallowed or taken with water. However, no one expected that Madame Yao would vomit as soon as she ate it. During Madame Yao's pregnancy, there had been almost no morning sickness. Who would have thought that she would have such a large reaction when she was about to give birth? Madame Lu changed to feeding her some brown sugar water, but she also vomited until there wasn't a single drop left. This was bad. She couldn't eat medicine, and she couldn't feed food. Her strength would quickly run out. Go call Imperial Physician Luo. Outside the room, Marquis Gu ordered Huang Zhong. Yes. Huang Zhong replied and left without stopping. About an hour later, Imperial Physician Luo was brought over. Imperial Physician Luo checked Madame Yao's pulse. His expression was just as serious as Madame Lu's. At this time, there was no need for him to say anything. Madame Yao had already realized that her pregnancy had not been easy. To be honest, when she was pregnant with Jiao Jiao and Yen, her reaction was very large. 6 months later, she even vomited. That pregnancy had been very difficult, but the delivery could be considered smooth. Guyan's body was not good because he had been born prematurely. It wasn't that she couldn't give birth at the time. Imperial Physician Luo asked Madame Lu what she had done for Madame Yao. Madame Lu replied, I planned to give her some birth-inducing medicine. Unfortunately, she vomited everything she ate. She couldn't even drink water. Imperial Physician, how is my wife's condition? Marquis Gu was extremely anxious outside. Go make some more ginseng soup for Madame. If it really doesn't work, she can eat anything she wants. Also, tell Madame not to exert too much strength or cry. She needs to conserve her strength. Imperial Physician Luo left the delivery room after giving instructions to Granny Fang. He reported to Marquis Gu, Madame's condition is not optimistic. The possibility of a difficult birth is very high. Generally speaking, the first stage of labor for a virgin was 10 to 12 hours. The first stage of labor for a woman who was going through labor was 6 to 8 hours. From the time Madame Yao's water broke until now, less than 4 hours had passed. It was not yet time to diagnose a difficult birth. However, with Imperial Physician Luo and Madame Lu's many years of experience as physicians, as well as Madame Yao's pulse, the two had a tacit understanding of Madame Yao's condition. However, Madame Lu did not dare to say it, but Imperial Physician Luo did. Marquis Gu felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His entire body was instantly soaked in cold air. Guyan's small face also became deathly pale. Xiao Heng stood beside him. He unconsciously pulled on Xiao Heng's sleeve. Xiao Heng pursed his lips and did not say anything. Gu Jiao had made a house call. He could not help with this kind of thing. He only hoped that Hidden Guard A could quickly bring Gu Jiao back. At that time, the two hidden guards had gone to the medical center. When they heard that Gu Jiao was not there, one went to the place where Gu Jiao had made a house call to inform her. The other went to bring Madame Lu over first. Gu Jiao had already received the news of Madame Yao's outburst. However, she was at the scene of the accident. A vicious attack had occurred in a casino. 3 people were seriously injured. It was unknown whether they were alive or dead. She and Dr. Song were busy rescuing the injured. Hemostatic forceps. She knelt on the ground and stretched out her hand. Dr. Song skillfully handed her the hemostatic forceps. She used the hemostatic forceps to clamp down on the injured patient's blood vessels. Aspirate, she said. The Research Institute's portable negative pressure aspirator had only appeared today. She did not know if it was because her strength had recovered, but the number of instruments in her small medicine box seemed to have gradually increased. If this was the case, then there was hope for Guyan's heart surgery. Dr. Song had been with Gu Jiao for so long, so he was not surprised by the strange things in her medicine box. He understood it immediately. He sucked out the blood and fluid in the patient's abdominal cavity. Gu Jiao found the remains of the dart that remained in the patient's abdominal cavity and took it out with tweezers. His spleen almost ruptured. She really did not know whether he was lucky or not. Gu Jiao was busy until midnight when she and Dr. Song finished rescuing all the patients. I will take them back to the medical center. You go back quickly, Dr. Song said to Gu Jiao. The shadow guards had been waiting outside the room for a long time. He knew that something must have happened at home. Gu Jiao nodded and returned to Biscuit Alley with the shadow guard. Madame Yao's labor pain was getting worse, but there was no sign of the baby being born. Halfway through, Gu Yan's heart disease almost flared up. Xiao Heng fed him medicine in time and coaxed him to go back to his room to rest. He let Gu Xiaoshan look after him. Little Jing Kong did not know that Madame Yao had encountered a difficult birth. Xiao Heng told him to sleep well. When he woke up tomorrow morning, he would have a little sister or brother. He was very happy and went back to his room to sleep with his little pillow. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all the novels that you can't find on the internet. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_89642826/1098396889. HTML Genius remembered this website's address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 471. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. Gu Jiao first discussed Madame Yao's situation with Imperial Physician Luo and Madame Lu in the central room. Nanny Fong was also there. She kept wiping her tears. Madame gave birth prematurely again. It's not considered prematurely. Gu Jiao said. It was considered prematurely born when it was less than 37 weeks. Madame Yao was already 38 weeks, so this fetus was full term. In fact, Madame Lu also said that it was normal to have an attack in this month, but Nanny Fong didn't dare to believe it. Only when Gu Jiao said the same thing did Nanny Fong feel slightly relieved. However, even full-term fetuses might not be able to be delivered smoothly. I'll go take a look first. Gu Jiao went into the delivery room. Only after she went and did Marquis Gu react. Was it that girl just now? Why did she come here to cause trouble at this time? As he spoke, he was about to go into the delivery room to pull Gu Jiao out, but he was stopped by Nanny Fong. Nanny Fong said, Marquis, don't cause trouble. Let eldest miss take a look at madam. Me? Cause trouble? Marquis Gu pointed at himself. He seriously suspected that he had misheard. Wasn't that girl the one who caused trouble? No matter how insensible she was, she shouldn't have disturbed her mother at this time. Her mother was about to give birth. Jinyu was still the most sensible. Father. Speak of the devil. Jinyu jumped down from the carriage, covered in dust. She almost didn't care about her bearing as a rich young lady and ran towards Marquis Gu. Father. Nanny Fong. He came in front of the two and also greeted Nanny Fong. Nanny Fong politely and distantly bowed. Second Mississippi, Marquis Gu was burning with anxiety. So he didn't care that Nanny Fong's attitude towards Gu Jinyu was not as respectful as it was in the residence. Gu Jinyu also didn't seem to care. She looked at Marquis Gu and said, Father, I heard that mother is about to give birth. Why is it so fast? When Marquis Gu saw that Yao Shi had not given birth, he sent Huang Zhong back to the manor to bring a few stalks of superior ginseng and Ganoderma over. Coincidentally, Gu Jinyu saw them. Marquis Gu didn't have the time to ask her how she got the news. He said with a serious expression, Your mother had a difficult birth. What? Wasn't everything fine before? Why did you suddenly have a difficult labor? Gu Jinyu had visited Yao Shi a few times in the summer alley and had a good understanding of Yao Shi's condition. Marquis Gu frowned. I knew it. This girl grew up in the countryside. How would she know how to take care of people? Gu Jinyu opened her mouth. Father, that's not what I meant. Don't blame elder sister, Nanny Fong said lightly. Second young miss is really good at taking care of people. Why don't I see second young miss coming to serve Madam tea every day? Gu Jinyu said in a low voice, I want to come too. I'm afraid elder sister won't be willing to see me. Senior servant Fong smiled faintly. Eldest miss isn't at home for 9 out of 10 days. Even if I wanted to see her, I wouldn't be able to. Gu Jinyu looked at Nanny Fong aggrievedly. Nanny, did Jinyu do something wrong that made Nanny unhappy? Nanny seems to only like elder sister and not me. This servant doesn't dare. Senior servant Fong bowed deeply. Marquis Gu looked impatiently at Senior servant Fong. That's enough. Don't just stand here. Quickly go and pull that girl out. Without waiting for Senior servant Fong to speak, Gu Jinyu said softly, Father, I'll go in and see Mother. Marquis Gu agreed. I'll go ahead. Take good care of your mother. Jinyu was much more attentive than that girl. That girl was crude and only knew how to use her hands. How could she be half as considerate and gentle as Jinyu? Senior servant Fong was called by Yu Ya. She was not paying attention, and Gu Jinyu went in. The room was filled with the strong smell of mugwort. Madame Lu had used mugwort to smoke Yao Shi's stomach to induce labor. Unfortunately, it was useless. Gu Jinyu felt uncomfortable choking on the mugwort and came to the bedside with a frown. Imperial physician Luo had already left. Madame Lu and Gu Jiao were guarding the bedside. Gu Jiao examined Yao Shi. Yao Shi's main problem was that her uterus was weak and her uterus could not open. This caused the fetus to be unable to enter the birth canal smoothly. Although Madame Lu had been comforting her, Yao Shi still felt extremely afraid. On one hand, she was afraid, and on the other, she was enduring the torment of labor pain. Her face was pale, and her body was soaked in sweat. This was the first time Gu Jinyu had seen Yao Shi in such a weak and sorry state. He was so frightened that he stopped in his tracks. Gu Jiao was using a stethoscope to listen to the child's heartbeat and did not notice Gu Jinyu come in. She said to Yao Shi, Don't worry. I'll give you an injection to induce labor first. If it still doesn't work, I'll give you a cesarean section. You are. Madame Lu went to get a clean towel. When she turned around, she saw Gu Jinyu. She had never seen him before and could not help but feel puzzled. Gu Jinyu returned to his senses and suppressed the fear in his heart. He said to Madame Lu, I'm here to see my mother. As he spoke, he walked to the bedside. However, before he could say the word mother, Yao Shi screamed from the torment of labor pain. That scream was truly pitiful. In addition, Yao Shi's entire face was contorted from the pain. She looked too frightening. Gu Jinyu paled and retreated a few steps. Coincidentally, she bumped into Nanny Fong, who was bringing in hot water. The hot water spilled and splashed all over Nanny Fong. The copper basin even fell to the ground with a clang. The baby in Yao Shi's womb was so frightened that he started to hiccup. Gu Jiao looked coldly at Gu Jinyu. Get out. Yao Shi also saw Gu Jinyu, but she did not have the energy to speak. Mother, before Gu Jinyu could finish speaking, Gu Jiao walked forward, grabbed Gu Jinyu's collar, and threw him out. Was Gu Jiao targeting Gu Jinyu? She was. 1. She did not like to be surrounded when she was practicing medicine. Another, Gu Jinyu was always grumbling. Of course, she could have asked Nanny Fong to escort him out. But she was annoyed. After Gu Jinyu was thrown out, Marquis Gu quickly caught him. Otherwise, she would have fallen flat on her face. Marquis Gu's chest was filled with anger. He glared coldly at Gu Jiao and said, Stupid girl. You've become bold, haven't you? Why do you hit everyone? Gu Jinyu grabbed Marquis Gu and said worriedly, Father, I'm fine. But you should quickly stop elder sister, right? I just heard her say that she wanted to cut open mother's womb and take out the baby. What? Marquis Gu's expression changed. It's enough that the stupid girl is not filial to her mother, but she actually wants to cut open her mother's womb. Does she still have a conscience? I will not allow her to hurt your mother. Marquis Gu rushed in aggressively. Unexpectedly, he had just taken a step when Shadow Guard A and Shadow Guard B both descended from the sky. Shadow Guard A sealed his acupoint with a whoosh. Then he and Shadow Guard B each grabbed one of his arms and dragged him out of the backyard. Xiao Hung looked at him indifferently from the main room. The moment he brushed past Xiao Hung, Marquis Gu understood everything. It was this brat who made them do it. This stupid brat. This stupid brat. Let go of me. Whoosh. Shadow Guard besealed his mute acupoint. Marquis Gu. Do you still remember that you are the Marquis's household's shadow guards? The two shadow guards directly dragged Marquis Gu out of the yard. Huang Zhong skillfully took him from their hands and carried him onto the carriage. Marquis Gu. Huang Zhong, won't you beat them up for me? Huang Zhong rubbed his hands and said, I'm a bit hungry. Marquis, I'll go make a bowl of noodles. You're still in the mood to eat noodles. Can't you see that my acupoint has been sealed? You should at least take me with you. Huang Zhong decisively went nearby and made a bowl of hot and sour lamb noodles. He ate with great vigor. Gu Jiao hooked Yao Shi up with an intravenous drip and began to inject oxytocin into Yao Shi. Gu Jiao had indeed mentally prepared herself for Yao Shi's cesarean section, but the anesthetics and scalpel needed for the operation still did not appear in the medicine box. An hour later, Yao Shi's situation began to improve. The contractions became stronger, and she was able to eat. It seemed that she could try to give birth naturally. 2 hours later, when Yao Shi's cervix had dilated to 2 fingers, Gu Jiao gave Yao Shi a painless injection. At midnight, Yao Shi ate a bowl of brown sugar eggs. At midnight, Yao Shi drank half a bowl of ginseng soup. At midnight, Yao Shi could no longer eat anything. She tightly held onto Gu Jiao's hand like a drowning person holding onto a piece of driftwood. Jiao Jiao, if something happens to me, nothing will happen to you. So don't make me choose to protect the child. At 5 o'clock, after a whole night of hard work, a loud cry finally came from the delivery room. Yao Shi's entire body was drained. It was as if she had just been fished out of water. There was not a single dry spot on her body. Hearing the child's cries, she was so emotional that tears began to fall. Don't be emotional. There's still the placenta. Gu Jiao said. Yao Shi nodded with tears in her eyes and cooperated until the delivery was complete. After Gu Jiao finished the last stitch, she took off her gloves and washed her hands with disinfectant. Like a doctor, she touched Yao Shi's forehead. You're very brave. This was a habit from her previous life. She would praise a patient who cooperated well. Her words did not have much warmth, and her expression was too calm. But every patient that she touched would feel a wave of warmth and excitement. Yao Shi was no exception. However, while Yao Shi was happy and excited, she suddenly felt that this daughter of hers was a bit unfamiliar. It was so unfamiliar that it was as if she had become another person, a powerful existence that could cause others to feel fear. In truth, this was because Yao Shi had never seen Gu Jiao perform surgery. When Gu Jiao put down the scalpel, she was a very obedient Jiao Jiao. When she picked up the scalpel, she became the king of hell. The king of hell picked up the crying baby and calmly looked at this little life that had been brought into the world by the king of hell. Hello, little brother. Welcome to the human world. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that cannot be found online are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/89642_8964286/10981717. HTML Genius. 1 second. Remember this website. www.zhpqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 472. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. After the baby was born, Marquis Gu's acupoints were finally unsealed by the secret guards. I'll deal with you later. Marquis Gu glared coldly at Gu Yan's two hidden guards and hurriedly walked towards Yao Shi's room. At this time, Yao Shi was not in her own room. Her room had been turned into a delivery room and needed to be cleaned up. She was resting in Gu Jiao's east room. She collapsed from exhaustion and fell into a deep sleep. Madame Lu had returned to the medical center, and Nanny Fong was bathing the little fellow. "Where's Madame?" Marquis Gu looked at Yuya, who was tidying up the room, and asked. "In the east room," Yuya said. Marquis Gu hurriedly rushed to the east room. The little fellow had already finished bathing and was now obediently wrapped in swaddling clothes by Nanny Fong. Marquis Gu looked at the little guy, and his heart skipped a beat. However, the first person he asked was Yao Shi. "Where is Madame?" Nanny Fong moved to the side with the little fellow in her arms, revealing the bed behind her. She said softly, "Madame is resting." "How is she?" Marquis Gu worriedly asked. As he spoke, he arrived at the bedside and tightly held Yao Shi's hand. "Is Madame all right?" Nanny Fong sighed. Although the Marquis was a little muddle-headed, he treated the Madame well. She said, "The Madame is fine." "Marquis, do you want to see the child?" Hearing that Madame Yao was fine, Marquis Gu's anxious heart finally settled down. His gaze fell on the swaddling clothes in Nanny Fong's arms, and he couldn't hide his excitement as he asked, "Is it a son or a daughter?" Nanny Fong smiled and said, "Congratulations, Marquis. It's a young master." Gu Jiao sorted out all the medical supplies. She destroyed those that could be destroyed and buried those that could not be destroyed. Then, she checked the small medicine box. The medicine box didn't seem to be as broken as it was when he first arrived. While she was recovering her strength, the medicine box seemed to be slowly recovering as well. Gu Jiao had actually guessed that the medicine box might not be a product of the three-dimensional space. It came from a higher dimension. Otherwise, there was no way to explain why it followed her. It might even have brought her brainwaves here. She saw it as three-dimensional, because she was a person from a three-dimensional space. She could only see this dimension. But maybe the medicine box was not what she saw. Maybe there was a wall on its left, or maybe there was a cabinet on its right. But because of the different dimensions, she could neither see nor touch it. Gu Jiao tapped on the medicine box. But why would a high-dimensional space product have a three-dimensional shell? Are you also a defective product? Were you exiled to our time and space by your master? A gentle breeze blew, and the medicine box was as quiet as a chicken. Gu Jiao tidied everything up. The sky was a little white, and the courtyard, which had been busy all night, fell into a temporary silence. Gu Jiao was a little sleepy, but she couldn't fall asleep. She went to sit on the swing in the front yard. Not long after she sat down, Xiao Hung came over with his cane. "Are you up or not?" Gu Jiao looked at him and asked. The next second, she realized that her words were unnecessary. He didn't even change his clothes. He obviously didn't sleep all night. Xiao Hung sat down beside her and handed her a small yellow orange, saying, "Congratulations, Dr. Gu, on becoming an older sister." Gu Jiao peeled the orange and put half of it in his palm. "Congratulations to Lord Xiao for becoming a brother-in-law." Both of them laughed. The exhaustion of the night seemed to dissipate in each other's laughter. Gu Jiao divided the orange evenly. Each of them had 6 pieces. The two of them ate the orange in their hands. When Gu Jiao had the last piece left, she didn't eat it. Instead, she put it in Xiao Heng's palm. "Also, congratulations to Lord Xiao for your promotion." Xiao Heng raised his eyebrows. My promotion gift is a piece of orange." Gu Jiao said, "Then as a sister, my gift is also a piece of orange." Xiao Heng said again, "As a brother-in-law, my gift is half a piece of orange." Gu Jiao, why did she have to compete with a scholar? Xiao Heng laughed softly. He looked at the piece of orange in his palm, which had even been peeled clean. He was a little reluctant to eat it. How about? He had just opened his mouth when he felt his right shoulder sink. Gu Jiao had fallen asleep on his shoulder. The golden morning light tore through the darkness, and stepped through the clouds. It gently scattered in the quiet courtyard. Xiao Hong ate the last piece of orange and raised his hand to block the light in front of her eyes. Son-in-law me. Yuya walked out of the central room with small steps. She wanted to call the two of them to eat something, but she saw Xiao Hong put his index finger on her lips and shushed her softly. Yuya quickly covered her mouth. Xiao Hong kept raising his hand to block the glaring light for her until his arm became numb. Yuya called him a groundhog in her heart. Son-in-law is a peerless good man. He's too gentle. Young miss, quickly submit to son-in-law. Xiao Hong waited until Gu Jiao fell asleep before he carried her in his arms. He wrapped one hand around her back and the other around her knees. He carried her horizontally and walked towards the west room. Little Jing Kong had already woken up. He went to look for his younger brothers and sisters. Xiao Hong placed Gu Jiao on his bed. Although they had slept together a long time ago, this was the first time she slept in his room. This feeling was very novel and made him inexplicably excited. His movements were very gentle, as if she was a fragile treasure. Little Jing Kong came back after visiting his younger brother. He was a little disappointed. His younger brother only knew how to sleep. It was not fun at all. When he came to the bed, he found Gu Jiao sleeping on his and his bad brother-in-law's bed. His eyes widened. The light in his eyes gathered again. He kicked off his shoes without saying anything. I still want to sleep. Before he could jump onto the bed, he was lifted up by Xiao Hong. His little arms and legs flailed in the air. Put me down. Put me down. I want to sleep. He wanted to sleep with Jiao Jiao. You should go to school. Xiao Hong dragged him out without hesitation. Little Jing Kong went crazy. Why did a child have to go to school? Although Xiao Hong didn't sleep the whole night, he still went to the Hanlin Academy. After all, he had just been promoted yesterday. It was unreasonable to ask for leave today. Besides, he wasn't very tired and could still hold on. I'll send you. Lu Quan said, you should at least take a nap in the carriage. Xiao Hong didn't refuse. It was still early, so Lu Quan drove the carriage very slowly. Xiao Hong leaned against the wall of the carriage and closed his eyes to rest. Halfway through the journey, Lu Quan's carriage suddenly stopped. It didn't move for a long time. Xiao Hong opened his eyes and asked Lu Quan, Uncle Lu, what's wrong? That. Lu Quan craned his neck and looked. He said, it seems that a noble's carriage is coming. This was the case in the capital. Once an official went out, those with lower ranks would have to give way to him. They were not the only carriage on the roadside. Many officials in front of them had begun to move to the sides of the alley to make room. Whose carriage is it? Xiao Hong asked. You don't even know? It's the newly appointed cabinet elder. A scholar who was watching the commotion said. Xiao Lulang was sitting in an old carriage. It was inevitable that people would think that his status was not very high. In fact, it was indeed so. A fifth-rank palace attendant was nothing in the capital, where a falling brick could kill 3 nobles. However, a cabinet elder was different. He was a close official of the emperor. The other party added a small character in front of the cabinet elder. May I ask which cabinet elder it is? Lu Quan asked the scholar. Lu Quan was very familiar with the official positions in the capital. If it was only a cabinet elder, his position might not be as high as Liu Long's. If that was the case, they could refuse. The scholar said, which other cabinet elder could it be? It's Prince An of the Zhuang family. He was promoted to the cabinet elder after working in the Hanlin Academy for only 4 months. He is indeed the most talented scholar in the capital. The most talented scholar in the capital? Who gave him this title? He was first in the imperial examinations. His Lulang was the new Zhuang Yuan. What should they say? Xiao Heng's focus was not on the title of the most talented scholar in the capital. Yesterday, when Princess Xinyang mentioned Prince An's promotion to the cabinet elder, she said that he was conferred the title of a 7th-rank palace attendant. Today, the commoners said that he was a cabinet elder. Elder Cabinet wasn't an official position, but rather a respectful title for the Grand Secretaries of the Cabinet. However, not every Grand Secretary of the Cabinet had the qualifications to be called Elder Cabinet. Only the Grand Secretary of the Intermediate Palace and the 2 Assistant Grand Secretaries of Jinji Palace and Wenhua Palace had the qualifications to be called Elder Cabinet. As for the Wuying Hall, Wenyuan Pavilion, and Eastern Pavilion scholars, they were all called Cabinet Elders. Princess Xinyang's information could not be wrong. Prince An's official position was definitely the 7th-rank palace attendant. Above the palace attendant were the 6th-rank palace attendant, the 5th-rank palace attendant, the 4th-rank palace attendant, and the 3rd-rank palace attendant. These people did not have the qualifications to be called Cabinet Elder. Prince An's title of Cabinet Elder most likely came from his birth and status. To put it bluntly, he was Grand Tutor Zhuang's grandson. When he entered the Cabinet Elder, he was aiming to be in charge of the Cabinet Elder. Cabinet Elder was just a title in advance. One day, he would become the Grand Cabinet Elder. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that could not be found online are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/8964-_899642_826/1098-16753. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 473. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all here. Lu Quan looked back at Xiao Heng and asked, "Lu Lang, should we move aside?" In terms of official position, Xiao Heng was now a 5th-rank attendant, but the other party was Royal Prince An. They couldn't afford to offend him. "No," Xiao Heng said, "if anyone should move aside, it should be him moving aside." "Ha, what a big tone." Royal Prince An's carriage came to the opposite side of Xiao Heng's carriage. The voice that came from inside wasn't Royal Prince An's, but rather Grand Tutor Zhuang's. Someone in the crowd recognized his voice and shouted, "It's the Grand Tutor." No one expected Grand Tutor Zhuang to be sitting in Royal Prince An's carriage. The officials who moved aside for Royal Prince An secretly rejoiced that they didn't put on airs and obediently moved aside. Otherwise, they would be the ones being slapped in the face by Grand Tutor Zhuang. Who was this kid? His voice sounded very young. Perhaps he was young and immature and kicked an iron plate. Others couldn't recognize Xiao Heng's voice, but how could Grand Tutor Zhuang not recognize it? Opposing him at every turn, taking away the Empress Dowager's favor, causing the Empress Dowager to be distant and cold to the Zhuang family. It was all this Xiao Liulang's doing behind the scenes. Grand Tutor Zhuang was warned by the Empress Dowager not to make things difficult for Xiao Lulang, but he couldn't make things difficult for Xiao Lulang. Grand Tutor Zhuang simply had the coachman open the curtain. He sat in the spacious carriage, and the people could see the inside of the Zhuang family's luxurious carriage from different angles. It seemed modest and not high profile, but who would have thought that a simple armchair table was made of expensive gold-rimmed Phoebe-Jinan wood? The curtain was only half opened, revealing Grand Tutor Zhuang's figure. Beside him was a pair of spotless official boots, presumably belonging to his grandson. Royal Prince and Grand Tutor Zhuang sneered and looked at the carriage in front of him. "Isn't this Attendant Xiao? Attendant Xiao, are you blocking my way? Are you waiting for this official to move aside?" When did the officials of the Hanlin Academy become so arrogant? Even the Grand Tutor has to make way for a mere attendant? These words truly did not leave any face for Xiao Lulang. No matter how outstanding Xiao Lulang was, no matter how much he was the new Zhuang Yuan personally appointed by the emperor, he was still just a small Hanlin official. How could he be like Grand Tutor Zhuang, who had long been a first-class official in court? Blocking Grand Tutor Zhuang's path, wasn't that just asking for humiliation? However, Grand Tutor Zhuang's attack wasn't just limited to his words. He continued, "You can't possibly be relying on the fact that someone in the palace is supporting you to not put me in your eyes, right?" There was someone in the palace backing him up. Who was it? Grand Tutor Zhuang didn't point out that it was the Empress Dowager, so everyone naturally thought it was the current emperor. His Majesty did not stick to one type of talent, but he was arrogant because of his favor at such a young age. It was clear that he was not worthy of His Majesty's praise. "I'm from the countryside, so I haven't seen the world." No wonder. He probably doesn't know that the emperor's heart is hard to fathom. Without His Majesty's favor, he is nothing. He's so arrogant because of His Majesty's favor at such a young age. Does he really think he is the same as Royal Prince and has the qualifications to be arrogant? But Royal Prince isn't arrogant. Royal Prince is humble and courteous. He knows when to advance and when to retreat. He never oversteps his status. This is the demeanor of a great family. What's the saying again? A bucket full of water doesn't sway, but a bucket half full of water sways. Ha ha ha. Everyone was amused by an old man's teasing. People probably had a strange mentality. They liked to see people fall from a high place and enjoyed the pleasure of being judged. Everyone was waiting to see Xiao Lulang make a fool of himself. However, no one expected that a handsome man dressed in purple leisurely strolled out from behind the crowd. He had a powerful aura. The originally impenetrable crowd almost involuntarily opened a path for him. When Grand Tutor Zhuang saw this person, his expression froze. Marquis Xianping? Marquis Xianping stopped beside Xiao Heng's carriage and looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang with a faint smile. "Oh, isn't this Grand Tutor Zhuang? What a coincidence. You're also going to court? What time is it? Still going to court? Court has already been dismissed." No, he used the word also. "Are you, Marquis Xianping, so shameless? You say it as if you're going to court today." Grand Tutor Zhuang snorted coldly. Marquis Xianping hasn't been to court in a long time. "I'm afraid you've even forgotten the time of morning court." Marquis Xianping smiled. "That's right. His Majesty is benevolent. He sympathizes with my old injury that hasn't healed and spares me the pain of going to court." Bullshit old injury that hasn't healed. You, Marquis Xianping, have never properly attended court. Of course, the emperor did say this. However, it wasn't because he sympathized with Marquis Xianping. It was because Marquis Xianping was too bold. The emperor was afraid that he would lose face for the officials of Zhao country. Thus, he gave him an excuse. "Is there a seat?" Marquis Xianping pretended to ask Lu Quan casually. "Ah, there is." "There isn't." Lu Quan and Xiao Heng spoke at the same time. The second sentence was said by Xiao Heng. Everyone's eyes widened. Did they hear wrong? This Hanlin official actually dared to reject Marquis Xianping on the street. He probably wants to beat Marquis Xianping to death. Grand Tutor Zhuang also chuckled. "There is okay." Marquis Xianping directly ignored Xiao Heng's rejection. He smiled and sat in Xiao Heng's carriage. His movements were natural and smooth. Xiao Heng, Grand Tutor Zhuang, everyone. After he sat down, he acted as if he didn't know that Xiao Heng's carriage was blocking Grand Tutor Zhuang's path. In terms of official position, he was a first-rank martial marquis. Grand Tutor Zhuang was one of the 3 dukes and was also a first-rank official. In terms of status, he was the current imperial uncle. Grand Tutor Zhuang was the previous imperial uncle. In terms of power, he held military power. Grand Tutor Zhuang secretly held political power. In terms of family background, the Xiao family was not as deep as the Zhuang family. However, Marquis Xianping also had another identity. He was the emperor's son-in-law. a powerful emperor's son-in-law. Since ancient times, those who married a princess were not allowed to enter the imperial court as an official. Marquis Xianping was the first. Marquis Xianping didn't care about the comments of others. He sat down casually and calmly looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang. His eyes were just short of saying, "I won't make way for you. If worst comes to worst, I won't leave." Marquis Xianping was so arrogant, so shameless. Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that his teeth itched. Marquis Xianping lazily leaned against the wall of the carriage and raised his eyebrows. This marquis isn't worried about being late. I wonder if Grand Tutor Zhuang and your grandson aren't worried about being late? What kind of joke was this? How could royal prince and be late on his first day in the imperial court? Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that his head hurt. Marquis Xianping wasn't here to jinx him. How could there be someone as shameless as Marquis Xianping in this world? However, his anger didn't last long. He thought of something, and his expression relaxed. If we're late, wouldn't attendant Xiao be late? If you remembered correctly, this was also Xiao Liulang's first day of promotion. Didn't you, Marquis Xianping, want to stand up for Xiao Liulang? Fine, you caused him to be late and get a demerit. Let's see if he still appreciates your kindness. Marquis Xianping's handsome face darkened. Fuck, I forgot about this. He narrowed his eyes and looked at old Fox Zhuang, then looked at the expressionless Xiao Hong. He leaned over and said softly, as if he was coaxing a child, "Don't worry, I won't let you be late." After saying this, he straightened his body. His voice was cold as he said faintly, "Chongjing, move the obstacles away." Chongjing flashed to the front of the Zhuang family's carriage. Before the Zhuang family's guards could react, Chongjing had already lifted the entire carriage. "Put it down gently. It's polite." Marquis Xianping reminded. "Oh." Chongjing really gently put the carriage to the side. Grand Tutor Zhuang almost exploded in anger and cursed in his heart. King moved my carriage in the middle of the street, and you still have manners. Where did you get the face to say such words? Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that his entire body trembled. Marquis Xianping, don't go too far. If the news of Marquis Xianping's subordinates moving his carriage in the middle of the street spread, where would he put his face? Where would the Zhuang family put their face? Marquis Xianping was about to leave when Grand Tutor Zhuang suddenly shouted. He lifted the curtain and motioned for Lu Quan to stop the carriage. Lu Quan didn't dare to disobey and obediently stopped the carriage. Marquis Xianping casually walked down the carriage and came to Grand Tutor Zhuang's carriage. Royal Prince suddenly had an ominous premonition. He was about to dissuade his grandfather, but it was too late. Marquis Xianping directly shattered the carriage. The walls of the carriage cracked and fell to the ground. Royal Prince and Grand Tutor Zhuang were exposed in front of everyone without any warning. The carriage was destroyed and only a bench was left. The two sat on the bench as if they were suddenly stripped naked. They were so embarrassed that their faces turned red. Marquis Xianping looked at Grand Tutor Zhuang and arrogantly curled his lips. This is going too far. Grand Tutor Zhuang. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642826/1098159447. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Go mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 474. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. This matter was too big and had a bad influence. Grand Tutor Zhuang would definitely go to the emperor to complain about Marquis Xianping in order to save his old face. However, was Marquis Xianping afraid of him complaining? There were mountains of complaints about Marquis Xianping in the imperial study. His shameless actions were too numerous to count. He didn't commit murder or arson, so he couldn't be punished severely. However, he did disgusting things one after another. He could make people angry to the point that one Buddha was born and 2 Buddhas ascended to heaven. However, these things didn't warrant death. At most, he would be beaten 100 times. After the beating, he would be a good man again. Marquis Xianping sat in Xiao Heng's carriage and left, leaving Grand Tutor Zhuang and his grandson as the laughingstock on the street. He originally wanted to give Xiao Lulang a show of strength, but unexpectedly, Marquis Xianping showed his strength instead. Grand Tutor Zhuang had never been so humiliated in his life. The Zhuang family and Marquis Xianping's Fu didn't get along for a day or two. It was normal to have a falling out, but it was rare to see a falling out like this. Was this falling out? This was F** King tearing up his pants. Royal Prince was really wronged. Today's matter wasn't his idea. Although he did feel a bit superior, he was implicated by Grand Tutor Zhuang. His glory of entering the cabinet was completely destroyed by Marquis Xianping's show of strength. Today's humiliation would probably become his dark history for the rest of his life. Marquis Xianping sent Xiao Heng to Hanlin Academy. Along the way, Marquis Xianping wanted to talk to his son shamelessly countless times. However, Xiao Heng said, "I didn't sleep last night," and Marquis Xianping shut up. Marquis Xianping held it in all the way until Xiao Heng opened his eyes and planned to get off the carriage. Only then did he ask, "What did you do? Didn't sleep all night?" Something happened. Xiao Heng said, "Marquis Xianping, how can I not know you have something to do? What is it? Tell me." He couldn't get angry with his son. The more he bullied Grand Tutor Zhuang, the more miserable he felt when being bullied by his son. Before Xiao Heng's accident, Marquis Xianping held the absolute dominant position in the relationship between father and son. For years later, the positions of the two had changed. "Why don't I apply for leave for you?" Marquis Xianping said. "No need." Xiao Heng calmly got off the carriage. Marquis Xianping followed. He had never compared his son's height in the past, but today he suddenly looked at his son's head and realized that his son was too tall, almost taller than him. He was a military general. Since he was young, he had been rolling and crawling in the mud, so it was natural for him to grow taller. This brat did not do anything, nor did he see him run or jump. So how did he grow so fast? Seeing that Xiao Heng was about to enter Hanlin Academy, Marquis Xianping's sharp eyes noticed that his walking posture was very strange. He was someone who had survived the battlefield. Other than his face, there was not a single part of his body that was intact. He had probably suffered more injuries than Xiao Heng had fallen. How could they not see that his lame leg was different from before? He asked, "Your leg is better?" Xiao Heng's steps paused. "It's really better." Marquis Xianping looked at him in surprise. Xiao Heng still did not intend to pay attention to him. Marquis Xianping sighed. "Do you hate me that much? Are you blaming me for not being able to save you from a fire because I was too busy investigating the case? Or are you blaming me for not being able to detect the existence of that group of people earlier, causing you to be forced to conceal your identity and go far away?" A straight man would never be able to find the main point when it came to admitting his mistake. He was so angry that he could dig out a vegetable garden with his toes. Xiao Heng's face was cold as he entered Hanlin Academy without looking back. Marquis Xianping was confused. Why was he angry again? Chang Jing drove the carriage to the vicinity. Marquis Xianping sighed as he got into the carriage. He leaned against the wall of the carriage and said helplessly, "Chang Jing, I'm too pitiful. Xiao Heng doesn't recognize me." I'm going to become a lonely old man. Marquis Xianping's original intention was to quickly say, "You're not old. You're in the prime of your life. You can still be beautiful for 20 more years." Unexpectedly, Chang Jing fell into deep thought. After a while, Chang Jing said seriously, "It's fine. If you die, I'll throw a basin for you." Marquis Xianping, after Gu Jiao's intensive medical practice for a day and a night, she was carried to the West Room by Xiaohong and fell asleep. Perhaps it was because she did not recognize the bed, or perhaps it was because this bed had a scent that she liked and felt at ease. She slept until the afternoon. Just before she was about to wake up, she had a dream. She dreamt of a boundless sea. On the sea, there was a battlefield. Marquis Xianping was on a battleship that was riddled with holes. He held a long sword in his hand and wore black iron armor. He was fighting on the deck that was filled with blood. In front of him was an island. Behind him was a city. Gu Jiao had never been to the city, but in her dream, she could call out the name of the city. Nanhai City, a small city in the southernmost part of the Zhao Kingdom. As for the island, it was originally part of Nanhai City. However, it had been invaded by pirates on the sea. Marquis Xianping's goal was to wipe out the pirates and take back the island. This pirate incident was not simple. Just as Marquis Xianping was going south to suppress the pirates, bad news came from the frontier fortress of the Zhao Kingdom. The remnants of the previous dynasty colluded with the Chun Kingdom. Tang Yueshan's army was defeated and Princess Ning and was captured. In order to save Princess Ning, the old marquis went into danger alone. Unfortunately, he fell into the trap of the remnants of the previous dynasty. The frontier fortress lost 3 cities in a row. The emperor was furious. He immediately summoned Gu Changqing, who was far away near Fengdu Mountain, back to the court. He ordered him to reorganize the Gu army and go north to attack the enemy. Unexpectedly, before the army set out, news came from the frontier fortress that Gu Chengfeng and the old marquis had both died. It turned out that after Gu Chengfeng learned that his grandfather had been captured, he quietly left the capital and went to the frontier fortress alone to save his grandfather. He was a flying frost. Logically speaking, it should be easy for him to steal someone from the enemy camp. However, something went wrong midway. He was discovered by the remnants of the previous dynasty and shot to death. The enemy cut off his head and hung it on the city wall with the old marquis's head. This was a premeditated trap. The frontier fortress was cold. The 2 heads hung on the city wall for a whole month without any signs of decay. The old marquis watched as his grandson was shot to death in front of him. He died with his eyes wide open. His pair of frozen red eyes were filled with anger and despair. Although Gu Changqing had mentally prepared himself on the way here, seeing this scene with his own eyes, seeing his younger brother and grandfather's heads hung on the wall, still made his blood boil. He spat out a mouthful of blood in front of everyone. Gu Changqing finally took back the frontier fortress, killed the remnants of the previous dynasty, and also annihilated the Chun army. However, the price was his legs and the 100,000 soldiers of the Gu army. 80,000 of them were not allowed to return. The heroic young men were stationed at the frontier. Because of this overly tragic dream, Gu Jiao did not immediately realize that she was sleeping on Xiaohang's bed when she woke up. She sat at the head of the bed in a daze for a while, and the little strand of hair on her head stood up again. The events in the dream happened half a year later. However, with the precedent of the Twin Blades sect capturing Xiaohang, Gu Jiao did not dare to guarantee that the events in her dream would not happen earlier. Why would it happen earlier? She did not know. Sometimes, she felt that her dreams were precognitive. However, recently, she suddenly had a misconception, as if they had happened before. She had experienced them, but she had forgotten them. This conjecture was very bold and could even be called absurd. That was why she said that it might just be her misconception. She suddenly thought of that transmigrator from the Yen Kingdom. She wondered if he or she had experienced the same thing as her. It would be great if she could ask him in person. Forget it. Now was not the time to think about this. It was better to think about what happened in the dream. If her conjecture was correct, then the most important question right now was whether the tragedy of the Gu grandfather and grandson, as well as the 100,000 soldiers of the Gu army, would happen earlier. Your Majesty. Your Majesty. Bad news. The emperor was reviewing memorials in the imperial study when Eunuch Wei walked in with a hurried expression. What's the matter? The emperor frowned and glared at Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei had been by the emperor's side for a long time. He should not have been so unruly. Eunuch Wei felt bitter. He did not want to, but this time something really big had happened. He reported, Your Majesty, Marquis Xianping has bullied Imperial Tutor Zhuang. Imperial Tutor Zhuang has come to complain to you. The emperor frowned. Imperial Tutor Zhuang? Marquis Xianping had bullied Imperial Tutor Zhuang? To be honest, he did not have a good impression of Imperial Tutor Zhuang. The Zhuang family had great power. On the surface, Imperial Tutor Zhuang respected him, the emperor. However, who knew how many obstacles he had secretly set up? No matter what, Imperial Tutor Zhuang had been a senior official for 2 dynasties. He was also the Empress Dowager's older brother, so he was his uncle in name. The emperor still summoned him to the imperial study. Grand Tutor Zhuang was a scholar, and all scholars had a sharp tongue. Through a voluminous accusation, he vividly portrayed Marquis Xianping's disregard for the law and discipline, as well as his tyrannical behavior of humiliating an official of the imperial court. The emperor thought, how could I not know that Marquis Xianping is a bully? What's the point of you looking for me? I can't even beat him. Imperial Tutor Zhuang understood that the emperor was on Marquis Xianping's side. But so what? The emperor could not be biased to the point that he forgot the rules. Imperial Tutor Zhuang said sincerely, Your Majesty, this is right under the emperor's feet. He dares to act so violently and does not put Your Majesty's dignity in his eyes. I really don't know how he will trample on the dignity of the imperial family in the future. These words were just short of saying that Marquis Xianping's merits overshadowed the emperor's. Today, he dared to bully the emperor's uncle. In the future, he would dare to sit on the emperor's head and behave atrociously. If these words were heard by the previous emperor, it would definitely cause problems. However, the emperor was not the previous emperor. He was not that suspicious. Moreover, in his opinion, this was Marquis Xianping's nature. If Marquis Xianping was not arrogant and despotic one day, then he would not be Marquis Xianping. Call Marquis Xianping to me, the emperor said sternly. The people on the street had seen it with their own eyes. As the emperor, he could not just sit and watch. Soon, Eunuch Wei brought Marquis Xianping into the palace. Your Majesty, this official is guilty. The first thing Marquis Xianping said after entering the imperial study was to admit his crimes. Then he confessed to his bullying of Imperial Tutor Zhuang and Royal Prince N. This series of actions stunned Imperial Tutor Zhuang. He had thought that Marquis Xianping would use the emperor's favor to refuse to admit his crimes. Or Marquis Xianping would push the blame to him and say that he used his status to suppress Xiao Lulang first. He was just helping out when he saw injustice. However, Marquis Xianping admitted his crimes just like that. Cough. The emperor cleared his throat. Marquis Xianping was really always able to break through the bottom line of people's understanding of him. Forget it, he would get used to it. This person was shameless. Why would he not admit his crimes? If he did not admit his crimes, he would be beaten 100 times. If he admitted his crimes, it would be reduced by half. The emperor had long given up on treating Marquis Xianping. In the early years, he had thought that this person was an official of the imperial court that he regarded highly. His every word and action was related to the reputation of the imperial court and also related to his face as the emperor. However, gradually, the people scolded Marquis Xianping only for himself and did not rise to the imperial court. The emperor was too lazy to find trouble for himself. The emperor looked at Marquis Xianping and said seriously, Seeing that you have a good attitude and actively admitted your crimes, I will punish you 50 times. In addition, your salary will be deducted for half a year." Marquis Xianping's face darkened. He could punish him with a plank, but he could not punish him with a salary penalty. Grand Tutor Zhuang was also not satisfied with this result. Their Zhuang family's face had been rubbed against by Marquis Xianping, but in the end, the emperor only punished him with a small salary penalty and a few planks. Marquis Xianping's family was extremely wealthy. What was half a year's salary to them? As for the planks, he was a martial artist. Hitting him with the plank was no different from tickling him. Grand Tutor Zhuang was so angry that his face was ashen. He clenched his fists so hard that they made cracking sounds. Marquis Xianping calmly walked out and glanced at Grand Tutor Zhuang. He clicked his tongue and sighed. "How old are you? Haven't you weaned? You still want to complain?" Grand Tutor Zhuang. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964/2_89642_109792710. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.